Hey, are you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Well, hello there. Welcome to this week's episode of the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast. Whether you're listening to this podcast for the first time, or if you've been listening since the beginning, thanks. You're my favorite listener yet. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can send me an email at whycan'twetalkaboutthat@proton.me. If you would like to join the Facebook group, please search for the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast and ask to join. I will most likely let you in. Thanks. And now for today's episode. My guest is Tony Quintanar. Before we sat down for our discussion, I really didn't know much about Tony. He was just a nice guy who always asked how I was doing when he would stop by my place of work. It wasn't until one day, as I overheard him talking politics with one of my coworkers, that I thought, hey, I bet this guy would be a good guest for the podcast. And guess what? He was. We had a great discussion as I got to know him better. Our discussion includes Santana, Tupac, baseball cards, Jose Canseco, Pete Rose, steroids, R&B music, Guy, Bruno Mars, East Coast versus West Coast rap, Digital Underground, New Edition, Ronald Reagan, abortion, propaganda, the Illuminati, Chris Pratt, Denominations, Calvary Chapel, Don Atello, the person, not the turtle, and how the way we live our lives affects those around us. I hope our talk impacts you in some way. Enjoy the conversation.
Do they see each other? Do they live probably about 45 minutes away from each other, right?
Yeah, they don't see each other as often as they should.
Yeah.
It's, you know, they.
Just their lives. They got their lives.
You know, my daughter's really busy. She's got a lot of work stuff going on. She's married now, so she's living with her husband down there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's working too. He's working for Home Depot and, you know, graveyard shifts, which makes it difficult for everybody because it's like, well, how do you work around someone's schedule like that? It's like, well, when do you want to hang out? Oh, I can hang out at, midnight. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm sleeping at midnight, so it's like, what do you want to do that for,
Who's the Biola parent? Who's the Biola kid?
That's my oldest. Okay. My daughter, yeah. She went to, she wanted to go into fashion design. Because she would watch movies. I raised my kids watching a lot because I'm really I was actually a film major at one point, and then I kind of abandoned that whole thing. But but anyway, I brought my kids up watching a lot of movies and stuff. So she was always really into fashion design. She wanted to go into fashion design for movies, like costume design. And so she went to Hancock expecting that as her major, and then she took Psychology 101 and just fell in love with psychology. So now she went into child psychology, and now she works with kids on the spectrum down in the LA area. So she's having a lot of, it's rewarding for her, and and she's really interested in it, and it makes for some really good conversations with all of us, because of her psychology background now, and she'll try to, I said, well, maybe you can fix us all now, because it's going on, because like me, I've dealt with depression, anxiety my whole life. Most of my kids have dealt with it at some point. So it's kind of like, oh, you can tell us, how to fix these issues, so, but anyway, so.
She probably learned a lot about herself.
Oh yeah, totally.
You learn so much about yourself. You don't see things the same anymore.
Right. Yeah, totally, man. That's exactly right. It opens doors. Eyes, so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, but anyway, well, thanks for being here, man. Glad this finally was able to happen. You know, when you came, I'll premise it with this, which I know I told you a little bit about this, but when you came in the office that day and you were talking, I don't know why you did that or like what your motive was, but it was almost like you came in and you almost had like you were specifically talking to that employee, you know, and it was almost like I don't know if there was a conversation outside of that or something that made you, but I mean, you like came in, you're pretty pointed, and you got very political and a lot of your things you were talking about. And I just thought to myself, oh man, this guy gets it, you know, this guy would be great for the podcast, you know. And at that point, I don't even think I had recorded any. I may have recorded 1 or 2. So this will be your number. This is number 11 that I'm doing now. Right. So yeah, there's only 4 out. Actually, I'm releasing them one a week. Yeah, so
episode 4.
Yeah.
So I heard it takes time to get those all together. So
it does. Well, what took the longest, honestly, was getting episode 1 out, or episode 0 out, just because you had to get the intro together and the song and the whole deal. And my older son's helping me with all of that, and it just take a lot longer than I thought. So now that we have that going, now it's pretty simple. Now I just, I record them and then I send them to him. He does all the compression and all the whatever he does, all the techie stuff that he does that I have no idea what I'm doing. And then that's it. And then I just release one every Wednesday. But it's nice to have so many in the can, as they say, to get it, and just like, okay, every Wednesday I'll have one, and then I'll just keep recording them as people are interested and as we go. But
I was able to come last time. The wife's having brake trouble, so it's like, she's like, I was like, okay, and then so like, here we are. Yeah, man, me too. Good stuff. So, so did you have a chance to listen to any of them yet? So, do you have any idea? So I heard yours once, and then basically, I heard most of it. And it was cool to hear you guys just the masculine banter.
Well, that one's different than I think all the other ones, just because anybody that works with us now, we do that all the time. We're constantly joking with each other. And I was a little worried about making that the first episode, to be honest with you, because I'm like, people that don't know us, they might think that we're like really, like that we're serious. I mean, we were serious. We talked about a lot of serious topics, of course, and we mentioned our ideas and thoughts on things in a serious way, but just a lot of the jokes that are thrown interspersed in there, And
well, I appreciate everything you guys were saying. I'm saying, and you guys are like real. You guys are like soulmates when it came to. When you guys were playing with soulmates when it came to music. When it came to music, you guys had like you were blown away by what he could tell you, like, wow, you know that one,
right.
And I was like, damn, it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to hear you guys go back and forth.
All right, we'll start there then. We'll start with music for you. Usually the first question I ask is like, what is your first remembrance of music in your life? Like, how young were you the first time you realized, boy, I really enjoy this song or this band or this music video, whatever it was?
I have so many different ones. I don't know if one stands in particular. My dad every Saturday morning would work in the garage. That was his thing. He worked 6 days a week, so he'd get off around, he'd go to work at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, get off at 11.
At night?
In the morning.
In the morning.
Like 4 in the morning. 5 in the morning.
Okay.
Worked till about
so he had most of the afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So he worked in the agriculture. He made those beautiful rows that you see in the agricultural field. He did that for years, and he ended up like a mechanic. So he was doing that. He'd come home in the morning. He'd had breakfast or whatever he was, and then we'd be up by then, and he would just be playing his 8-tracks inside the garage.
Nice.
Just messing with things in the garage. I'd always try to see what he was doing. He'd always be playing like like I would say part of my was probably Santana.
Okay.
Santana. The group Santana was probably the earliest I can remember.
Nice.
And then as kids, sometimes we had family members that needed to be housed for a little bit. I'm between houses or had fallen out, blah blah. So we were like the foster.
That's
like
cool.
The foster home for like family members. Like so many family members lived in our house. So they were really, my aunts, his sisters, my dad's sisters, were really into like Tears for Fears, Duran Duran. They're all about the 80s. So I learned everything. The song Our House.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying my everything I was exposed to was just everywhere. Everywhere. I'm saying everything from Metallica to Soundgarden to Blind Melon to
to now you're hitting the 90s stuff.
Everything, just all over the place. So I would say probably Santana is my earliest one.
Okay.
And sometimes I don't even know I know the songs. Oh, I know that song. And sometimes I just love the song, but I don't even care to find out who the artist is because I just grew up so much having this music around me. So we're a musical family. So
yeah. Okay. And do you think are you still a Santana fan today, or do you?
I think of the classics. I think I am. I'm saying I still hear them. I know, was it the guy from Matchbox 20 made one with?
Oh yeah, Smooth. Yeah.
And I liked that for a while, but afterwards, I think sometimes they get too much radio play. You just tend to, so you get played out. So you got to change it up. So
right.
I have satellite radio in my car.
Okay.
So I get to hear whatever I want. So I don't get too burned out from one thing because the radio can get just so redundant.
Oh, I know.
It's like they pay these radio companies that are owned by big conglomerates. Say, hey, this is the playlist you have to play. You have to play these standard ones 20 times a day, and then you can play whatever else you want afterwards.
Right.
And I hear that because my brother was a DJ. My brother was a DJ for the local radio station for years, and I'm like, that sound sucks. You just can't play what you want all the time.
Right.
I go, on Friday nights they get to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
I remember this one time. I don't know if you were probably in school back then, maybe in college. One time, this guy, I think it was 95.7 or 106, and he was upset with management. So
he worked there and he was upset with management?
We were cruising. It was like Friday, Saturday night. We're all cruising. This is like 1990. It might have been 95, 96, 97.
Okay.
And we're cruising down Broadway, and all of a sudden, he's telling the guys like, "All right, guys, I'm pissed off at management." First of all, he narrates everything. He locked himself in the radio room so nobody else could get in.
Oh no!
And he started going off on management.
On air?
On air. And he was like, F you, and you screw up, I don't care if you fire me, blah, blah.
Oh, wow.
Here's the music I'm going to play. And he plays Eminem's My Name Is.
Oh, nice.
But he plays it for an hour.
Over and over and over.
And then he goes, I can see you, Mr. Manager, on the glass.
Oh, man.
Here's this for you. He tells the narrator, I'm giving him the middle finger right now, guys. Wow. He ended up getting suspended for a while.
Suspended?
Yeah, because I don't know, they kept him, I guess, but he went off and he just kept playing My Name Is for like the whole cruise. And we were laughing so hard. He was like talking and he was like, hey, my manager's pissed off.
So you guys were driving in the car and you were listening to this broadcast.
We're just listening to this broadcast. This guy was just going off, dude. I've never heard that before. I've never.
Man.
It was awesome, dude.
That's awesome.
And he kept his job.
Yeah.
I think he still does this. Yeah, I don't remember I don't know if he was which DJ he was, but it was DJ E-Rec or something like that.
Do you remember? Did you ever see the movie Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
You remember that? You just reminded me of that scene where Andy, he's trying to get I forgot what he's trying to do. He's trying to get something they won't give it to him. Or they won't let him listen to music or something. He breaks into the thing and he locks the door and he starts playing this classical music and everybody's this moving moment, but all the guards are trying to break down the door.
This.
Oh yeah. And as soon as they get in there, they beat the crap out of him, but it was worth it to him, I guess.
He gives the whole Shawshank, he gives him hope.
Yeah. That's such a great movie. That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
I love that. And then he gets him the suds. He gets some suds. He just knew how to just sweet talk.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That was an awesome vindicating movie.
All right, so moving on into later, do you have like a specific genre that you tend to like more? Not like you only like one genre, but do you have one that kind of stands above the rest when you go to listen to music?
I would say anything probably from like the late 80s to early 90s. Even before Tupac. I'm saying before 96, 95. I'm saying my stuff have been more like Tupac with Digital Underground or whatnot. Or or
same song.
Yes.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And I'm saying, I love the 80s because you know what? It's like, you think about all these new genres, they copycat everything they had and they make, I'm an artist. You're not an artist.
Right.
Like, you're not an artist. Your whole, the whole music they do, like, what is it called? The dirty, they call it the trap music.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I never got into that either.
It's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's like, but I'm saying the 80s music, I'm saying, I love it. Whether it's Billy Idol, whether it's whether it's Billy Ocean, or
Billy Joel. There's a lot of Billies in the.
There's a lot of
80s.
Billies, man, and just I love the music because it speaks to me. I had a good childhood, and I was able to associate all those great memories. Where was I at when I was playing that music? And I say my aunt had this huge like $3,000 stereo system with has a gigantic remote about this big, and you just they go, hey, listen to this, and then listen to this.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to music, listen to Tears for Fears, Every Once to Rule the World, and
That's
Shout.
awesome.
shout, let it all out.
Yeah.
I used to sing that song. I used to knock back in my chair.
Nice.
and play it. I'm saying you had MTV, you had VH1 when they actually played music.
Right.
Did you ever used to record get a VHS tape? And record these videos to have them forever?
Totally. Yes.
I think my parents have them somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I gotta find myself.
Yeah. Well, because we didn't realize that someday they were going to have things like streaming and things like internet and things, like these things where you could just get those videos at the touch of a button at any moment. Yeah. Like right now, you and I can go on the internet, YouTube, we can type out any of those videos from the 80s and we can watch it. You don't have to have a VHS tape. You don't have to have it on DVD. It's like, but back then we didn't know that. I mean, I used to take cassette tapes and record like Casey's Top 40 off the it was a Saturday mornings, I think they do it, and that's the way I got my songs recorded. It's like, and I didn't even have to rewind for 20 minutes to find the song and everything else.
Or the radios, I had a little old Panasonic radio I got for my birthday. I was excited, and you know how you do it. You would play tapes and record them off the radio, and then you would make your mixtape and you'd sit there for hours doing it, and then as soon as it stopped, you knew when you press record, you had to let a little bit more time go, so because it would backtrack, and then you try to make it mixed properly.
Right.
And oh man, I had so much fun. I'm saying I would sit in my room, just sit there in the dark, just listen to music.
Yeah. See, you're like me then, because I mean, my whole life almost my whole life I can't remember there not being music involved somehow. I've been a huge music fan since like forever. Going back to listening to music in my parents' cars, I was driving around, and then I got old enough to buy my own cassettes, and I got old enough to buy CDs as those came out. And even today, I don't do like Spotify, and I don't do a lot of the streaming stuff that a lot of the younger people that I have on this podcast are like, I don't own any CDs. They say, I do Spotify, or I do Apple Music, or whatever these streaming services. And it's like, I'm that guy that still buys albums. Like, I'll go buy a CD when it comes out, I'll go to like buy MP3s digitally, but I'll usually still put them onto a CD and the whole deal, because there was something different. You had the case, you had the lyric sheet, you had like, I don't know, it was just different.
You had something in your hand. You had something in your hand.
Right.
You had a piece of like, I don't know, it's like I collect baseball cards, so you have you don't like go online and look at baseball. No, that's a cool baseball card. You want it in your hand. You just feel like it's yours.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of, that's kind of a side note, but do you have a lot of like ones that are worth a lot of money still?
I used to. They used to be wild warning, but since when the market in the late 90s started getting saturated, like they're making new types of versions of baseball cards and became more of an adult's thing. As a kid, it was so expensive. You couldn't keep up, so I just stopped. I probably stopped collecting was probably like about 14. Okay. 13 or 14.
So you have some pretty old ones then.
I got some stuff from one of my favorite cards is probably Roberto Clemente from 1970 something. Okay. One of the guys from work sells baseball cards and trades and stuff like that, so I got it from him one day. But I was a big Jose Canseco fan as a kid.
Oh yeah. I was an A's fan when I was growing up. Yeah,
I definitely was. They were a great team, and so I have probably like 60 something of just his cards, like different ones I had from his rookie years from the '86 season and stuff like that. So back then, some of those cards were $35 for one card, $50, $75. Now they're like $8, $4.
Oh, they went down.
Just everything goes down, and nowadays the cards aren't worth as much. If you get like a special gold, some kind of special series card, they sell them now like $10 a pack, and you get a special card. Yeah, those can be worth like hundreds of dollars each. So. But for me, I don't really have much hobbies too much than basically spending time with my family. So I'm telling myself, I think I'm gonna start getting to the cards again, just buying the old ones, 60s and 70s with that. Yeah. Throw a couple $100 on one card.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be expensive.
What the heck are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing? I go, hey, you told me I need to get a hobby.
That's right.
I go, what? Yeah. I found a hobby.
You're like, we don't need to eat this week. I need to get this card. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So since you were a big Jose Canseco fan, was it like shattering for you when the whole steroids thing came out, and he was like, was it kind of like your hero was kind of like defamed and kind of thing?
Yeah, I was kind of shocked. I was like, it was saddened, but then it was just like, and the only reason why it came out is because they blackballed him, and they basically said, hey, let's get this guy out of here. He's like poster child for steroids, whatever it is. He was juicing everybody up,
right?
And so it sucked, but at the same time, it's like, they did him pretty dirty. They tried to keep him quiet. They said, the guy was still hitting 45 home runs a season.
Right.
He was actually the active leader, home leader at the time. when he was playing for like the Tampa Bay Rays, I think it was. It's like one of the last teams before nobody would sign him anymore. I go, why would you not sign a guy that's doing exactly what you want? Make you money.
Right.
Make you money. Because they were all making money. And so MLB turned a blind eye to it for forever. And but so yeah, he says he wrote that book, Juiced, and started naming names.
Oh, nice.
And then I guess he said that his editor said, hey, I'm telling you right now, certain people you cannot name. What do you mean? It doesn't matter. We won't publish you. Because I guess the powers that be in the world out there said, we're not going to allow this to happen. So he had to keep hush-hush, and then obviously it came out in court when they were trying to call him liar. He's a liar, and Mark McGwire was telling him, you're a liar. Yeah. And then it came out later, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, see. Forgive me. Everybody's asking for forgiveness now. Right. And now what happened? Mark McGwire's in baseball games. He's a coach. He's a hitting coach. They're all asking for forgiveness. All these guys are asking for forgiveness. But it's funny because now they're talking about these guys having a chance to be Hall of Famers again. Right. But nothing about Canseco. Yeah. Because he did the taboo. You don't speak up about it. You're the guy. But he's the guy that if it wasn't for him speaking out, we wouldn't have all these drug tests, all this stuff. We wouldn't have. He's actually the guy that you should be thanking.
You should start a petition and try to get him in there. Because
I'm trying to get Pete Rose in there.
That's what I was just gonna say. There's people that have already done that for Pete Rose. You know,
poor Pete Rose, dude. That guy. He suffered more than anybody for his mistakes than anybody else. If anybody deserves vindication, that guy. That guy went to prison. I'm saying, I think I have the Sports Illustrated where it says busted or something like that on it. That guy was the best player there ever was. He was not only, at one point in time, he was not only a player, but he was an active manager at the same time. Right. On the team. So he's managing the team and playing the same time.
Yeah, I think bare minimum, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, they're denying him Hall of Fame status based on the gambling, you know.
And there's gambling everywhere. Right. I'm saying everybody's gambling. Now they're saying MLB, you can gamble at the things. Right. Okay, so you can gamble, but they still don't want to let him in. I met him. I met Pete Rose at Las Vegas because there's a store there. I think he owned it or owned it. And my son was small and he was out there. And my son was wearing a Dodger hat. He goes, oh, Dodger. I told my son, like, just messing with him, like, I like the Dodgers. Right. But he was cool. And he signs, he's gracious. I'm saying, I got a guy that more hits than Ty Cobb, and he won't let him in. It's all spite. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just spite. I'm sure he called him out. He had a big mouth, but he backed it up. He was an awesome player. He played hard balls out. Right. So if anybody deserves to get him in, it's that guy right there. Right. Get him in, then we'll talk about Canseco afterwards. Because
that's the thing, right? Like, I think you're right. You say it's like everybody was probably doing exactly what Pete Rose was doing. He's just the one that got busted. He was the poster child for it. Same with Jose Canseco. You're telling me you want us all to believe that he was the only one that was doing steroids? I mean, please. They probably all were doing that. He's just the one that happened to got caught and put out on the front lines. Oh, here's the guy. Here's the face. Here's the guy you need to hate because, you know, all this. But all the other guys are like, oh, okay, we better lay low now because we're the same as him, you know? Yep,
and they all did it, and they all confessed at the end. All those people that lied, Rafael Palmier, all those guys. Right. They all said, I did it. Right. Forgive me so I can come into the Hall of Fame. But what they screwed up is that these huge steroid era numbers, like big home runs, big offensive numbers, now everybody that doesn't juice up, to make the Hall of Fame, they're still holding to those steroid era standards. You still got to hit 500 plus home runs. You still have to hit 600, 700. You still got to do this. I go, why? I go, well, because those are tainted numbers. Right. It's fun. They still hit home runs. It takes a lot of amazing physical ability to be able to be successful. Even if but I'll tell you one, like Barry Bonds, they talk about him all the time. Like, dude, that guy was like, if you would have kept just hitting his 30 home runs a year, I mean, like hitting 70 at when he's about to retire, you know, he would have still been in the Hall of Fame. There still would have been a fair standard for everybody to be graded upon how you make the Hall of Fame. Because back in the day, before these guys used to be the Hall of Fame, you could, you know, a guy hit 200 home runs and he had a 280 batting in his lifetime, you know, or whatever it was. It wasn't astronomical, but they were productive, they were good, they were great in their community, and that's what got you in the Hall of Fame. About the kind of person you were and the kind of player you were, not about if you could hit 700 home runs. Right. And you got something like Jim Thome that was as squishy as they look. Right. That guy hit 700 home runs by himself. You can tell it, no juice right there. That guy hit 670 home runs in his lifetime. Or
you look like Babe Ruth. Yeah. You don't look at Babe Ruth and go, well, there's a healthy, you know, looking
robust.
Yeah, like a big buff guy. I mean, he was just a tall, heavy dude, you know. So
and you know what? They said that I read that he drink like 7 Coca-Colas and like 12 hot dogs before a game. He just rub, and he would just whack them out of there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And he had a big alcohol problem.
He was huge. And
right?
these guys
So, I mean,
the ball. I'm saying baseball, the guys don't throw 105 like they did, but they said some guys back then, the way they tracked it, they said, no, some guys were throwing pretty fast back then, too.
Right. You
know, like Walter Johnson, guys throwing like 99 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. But
did you play ever? Were you a baseball player?
I played all the way through high school, my senior year. It was fun. I had a good time. I regret not trying to for college, Hancock or something like that. Or,
you think you could have got a scholarship?
I don't know. I think I needed some more guidance. I could hit the ball pretty hard and pretty far. I was kind of like that. I was probably an average hitter just because I needed some stuff to work on. But back in those days, they didn't have all the stuff the kids have, trainers and all this stuff, and camps and clinics.
Oh yeah.
My son takes advantage of that. And he's great.
Oh, is he a player too?
Yeah. He's really, really good.
Nice.
And he plays all 3 sports. He plays football, basketball, and baseball. So baseball's what he loves to do.
That's his favorite.
Yeah, he loves. But he's just he's a natural born athlete.
Right.
And so he's having fun with it. But thing is, I'm able to send him to this guy to help his hitting instructor.
Right.
If we had that back then, who knows?
Yeah.
I would probably have more confidence to go try out to the next level.
Right.
But I think we get caught up in working when we get out of high school. So we just get caught up like, oh, I got a paycheck. Yeah, I got money every Friday.
Right.
So you just kind of lose focus on that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's something we never talked about on this podcast, baseball.
Yeah.
I was going to say, back to the 90s, the 90s era, kind of, you mentioned like Tupac. And so were you a big hip hop fan in the 90s mostly, or?
I was, but R&B too. You got maybe Stevie B or Keith Sweat.
Yeah.
Or name anybody. After 7.
Yep. There's a bunch of them. Ralph Tresvant.
The Babyface. They kept multiplying it and making more records with brothers or whoever they were. And,
right. Well, and then you had New Edition and all those guys. Johnny Guild, Bobby Brown.
Everybody. New Kids on the Block. I'm saying, I think late 80s was like the biggest for me.
Yeah.
It's just, my gosh, dude, you can think of your first date.
Right.
What you were doing.
See, and that's the thing, right?
Kissing back then.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And that I think that's such a big part of it is that it all goes back to where you were. Like the music's great, of course, but it's like, why is it that when I talk to somebody like you, who's about the same age as me, you will cite about the same time frame, like late 80s, early 90s or whatever. I would say the same thing. But if you talk to somebody 20 years older than us, they'll say like, oh no, the 60s, the 70s, that's where the music was the best, kind of a thing. And you and I might say, oh yeah, we like classic rock, we like music from the 60s, but it doesn't do the same thing for us. And I think that's why, because like you said, you hear a certain song or even a certain style of song and you're like, okay, this puts me back to that junior high dance, or this puts me back to, there's a song by Guy. You remember Guy?
Oh yeah, The Future.
The Future was the Let's Chill. Right. So that song, dude, whenever I hear that song, I'm right back to 7th grade junior high dance. Every time, because they always played it. It was the slow jam they played, and you'd be all nervous to ask the girl you like to dance to, and this whole deal, right? And it's like all those feelings come back and those emotions, and it's just amazing to me that music can do that. To where somebody from that's older than us, like I said, would say the same thing about the '60s. They'd say, "Oh, and that Lynyrd Skynyrd song came on, and I was talking to that girl in the hallway, or whatever." Like it's like a memory, and it becomes more than just music at that point.
There's a podcast on Guy too. I forgot what it's called.
Oh, really?
There's actually a podcast about the music of Guy, from Teddy Riley and how it started, and some of the ugliness of the industry, what they went through. But I don't think I got to finish the rest of it. I don't know what happened. We were traveling through Lancaster. We were driving through Palmdale or something like that, and we were missing on the way home. And I think when we got home, we didn't get to finish it up.
Yeah.
But there's a podcast about Guy.
I'll have to check it out.
It's out there.
Because it's funny, because I think they only had the 2 albums. They had The Future was the first one, and I think that was the first one. And then they had one after that, and then they all did solo. Aaron Hall went solo. Teddy Riley started working with like Blackstreet, and
Aaron Hall's really the one that really
he was the voice.
He was the voice of so many records. He did other ones too. I think he was. I don't think he was on Blackstreet, but he was on some other ones later on too, where he just was there. He's the guy that produces it, but he always had that voice,
right?
That amazing,
amazing
voice, dude.
Well, in his solo album, he may have had more than one. The one I had was called The Truth, and he had "I Miss You" was on there. Then he had a song on the Juice soundtrack, "Don't Cry," I think it was called. Maybe you remember that movie Juice? With Tupac and all those. But that was a good one too. But yeah, and the thing I cannot find, like a lot of that music, like even if you take like some of the rock from the 90s. And you look at rock now, it's it's different, but it's not that different. I can't find anything that sounds like that 90s R&B soul stuff. Like all those groups you just mentioned a minute ago. I can't find that anywhere like now, you know?
Yeah, I wish we had it. I wish they would bring it back. You know who does well with that? Bruno Mars and what's it called? Silk Sonic or something they called? The group that he sings with sometimes.
I don't know.
There's a couple songs out there. I forgot what they're called, but he, like Bruno Mars, he has a way. He brings back a lot of old stuff. The way he sings it,
right?
I love it because
he reminds me of Michael Jackson.
He does
from back in the day.
He does, and the guy can dance like the guy's amazing,
right?
And so that guy's the only one I know that actually has like these kind of songs. Now there are some stuff if somebody listens to that radio, listen to like there's a radio station called Heart and Soul, I think it's called, and you'll hear a bunch of stuff that you probably never heard before. And I think they still make music like that, but it's not so mainstream. Right. You got to kind of find it. It's there's a different stuff out there. So with having that many channels on the radio, at your fingertips, you can pretty much find them. But yeah, I wish they still had it because I tell my son when we were on the radio, I go, Jesse, this is real music.
Yeah.
I go, your trap music is trash.
Yeah.
I go, it's trash.
Oh, is that what he's into? He likes that kind of stuff.
He's like, and I gotta watch it because some of the I don't like the cussing too much. So I'm like, hey, dude, you need to be mindful because some of the stuff I don't like it because the kids don't realize it. I realize now. Music is influential.
Oh, totally.
It is. Think about it. Whether you're at church or how it makes you feel, how you express yourself, and think about the artists themselves.
Yeah,
they love music. It impacts their lives, so it's going to impact other people's lives as well. So, I told my son, I go, be careful what you let get into your head, because I told my guys, like, for example, I'm like, let's say you're at a mosh pit, dude, and the music's rocking, and everybody's bouncing off each other. There's influence right there. There's power in music, right? Right. There's power in music.
Yeah, totally.
Even as far as the Bible talks about the angel music. And so it's like, it's just powerful. So I said, be careful I try to watch what he listens to. But hey, dude, my wife would go listen to his phone and go, what do you listen to? No, you're not going to listen to that stuff. Right. So I go, listen to my music's real music. Right. I go, it's got real stories. It's got real passion. It's got a real message, and a lot of it's much more positive. Whether it's Santana, whatever it is, it talks about life. These are the ones that are kind of like how much money they can get, how many girls they can get, how many bodies they can draw. Right. I'm like, it's like that's all it is. I'm like, because kids like they gotta watch. Like he's 14.
Oh yeah. And
I'm like,
but if you were to show them show your kids like Tupac and say, oh, here's what I used to like this when I was a kid, you'd be dealing with the same kind of thing because it's the same kind of music. It's full of profanity. It's talking about killing people. It's talking about drugs and sex and all this, And
that's my wife's favorite. Is Tupac's the best rapper of all time, right? My son likes Biggie better because I like Biggie.
Oh yeah, see, I would out of those two, I would say Tupac. I like them both, but I think, but I've always been more of a West Coast guy. So.
I like Tupac. I think his voice. He sounded like he could have been on radio his life. Oh yeah, that really awesome charismatic voice. Right. We had an opportunity to go to LA to go to the Tupac Museum. It's called Wake Me Up When I'm Free. Okay. It's called. Amazing.
Is that where they have that hologram thing?
Yeah, all this stuff. I had pictures, all kinds of stuff of it. I was there, and it's amazing. They had it there for so many months, and it's moving like to Brooklyn, it's moving to here, it's moving around. Might come back. I'll probably come back to LA, but it was amazing. Like all his tattoos, you walk into the first lobby, they have these gigantic, huge sculpts like on the walls, and they're every tattoo he had in his body.
Oh, that's crazy!
Like every symbol, every word. Yeah. Thug for life kind of thing. Everything was amazing. How they blew it all up. And
I didn't know they had that museum.
Yeah, and
it's in LA.
Yeah, it was in LA. It left in September, and it's going. I'm not sure. You have to look online. It's called Wake Me When I'm Free. Okay. And so it talks about how music influences life and through the hard times. We find that sometimes. Music makes us feel good. Oh yeah. It makes us feel sad. If we want to have a feeling, we know you might know exactly what artist to go to. Right. Oh, for sure. In those days, 80s, 70s, 90s, those are real artists. Those guys, some of them wrote their own songs, or they wrote with somebody all the time, consistently. Nowadays, it's like, just give me the lines and I'll read them. Right. It's acting. Right. And it's like, that's probably why some of these artists can be good, or good entertainers can be good actors later on. Some of them transition because it's always a show. Some of them are not even who they say they are. It's just like a thing. Like you'll hear some people say, well, I rap about my life and what I've experienced, what other people experience, tell other people's stories. Right. To make it sound like it's mine, but I don't really live that life. Right. So,
well, those guys that get like crucified from the people from their they grew up with, right? Because they come out and they say, hey, this guy, he's not all he's saying.
He went to private school.
Yeah, exactly, right. But they make it sound like, and we always used to make the joke when I was younger about why is it that almost every single rapper, especially like in the 90s, right? They were all from Compton. Like, you would think Compton was the biggest city like the world has ever seen. Compton is not that big. I'm like, is there something in the water over there? Are they just breeding rappers? Like, why are they all from Compton? Like, it's like it never made sense. Like, you had all those guys. Like, you had like MC8 and Compton's Most Wanted. You had like DJ Quick was from Compton. You had like the NWA guys were from Compton. It was just like everybody was from Compton.
And they were good too. I'm saying, it was a trip how much talent they had coming out of that place. Yes. I'm like, and then there's always that battle of like, who's better, West or East?
Right.
And I'm like the West, man, West.
Yeah, see, and I think it's like where you grew up, right? Because for me, like, there are some East Coast rappers I like, but a lot of them I can't stand. Like, I Nas, love Nas. I like Biggie was good.
LL Cool J was a legend.
LL Cool J was good, yeah.
Those are all East Coast.
Well, LL Cool J I grew up on. That was like one of my originals. Like, I had that Can't Live Without My Radio and I'm Bad, that album, Bigger and Deafer. I had a bunch of that. So that's what I grew up listening to.
Yeah, you got Bismarcky, you got...
Oh, yeah.
And you realize like, these are a lot of these are East Coast guys, you know? Who else would we think about? Gosh, there's just so many artists from the East Coast.
But then there's ones I didn't like. Like Busta Rhymes, can never get into that guy. He drove me nuts. He just, I don't like his voice. I don't like his, I mean, I didn't even like in that Tribe Called Quest song, Scenario. Remember that song? And he comes in at the end, and I always stop it, right? I was like, I hate your part. I like the other guys. I love Tribe Called Quest, but I didn't, some people get mad at me when I say, "Oh, Busta Rhymes is bad." Hey, just relax.
He was a trip. and now they call him Busta Rhymes. It was a trip. He's like how he rapped, and everything was a rhyme. Actually, everything was rhyming. It probably got too redundant,
right?
But it was amazing. It was a trip how he did things, and he was so weirded out. His music videos, he's like in fluorescent green paint and just all kinds of weird. He just weird stuff. He's like. I don't know. I think he just smoked too much LSD or I don't know how something wrong. But he was different. And Tribe Called Quest, like the group themselves, are way different. They're just, and you hear them, was it everything's after like kung fu and everything like that. They were awesome. They were amazing. They were a creative bunch. Method Man.
You're thinking of Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang.
Yeah, so that's
Wu-Tang. Tribe Called Quest, but then Wu-Tang was big too.
Yeah, Wu-Tang was awesome with Method Man and all those other guys in there. Method Man was always my favorite. But see, Wu-Tang for me was one of those things. A lot of my friends were like, "Oh, this is the greatest rap group of all time." I was like, there's some songs that I think, okay, this song is solid. Like, this is fantastic. But for me, Wu-Tang was never like, you'd be able to, what was that 39 Chambers, right? Was the album that everybody says, oh, this is the greatest album. And I could never like listen to that from beginning to end and say, there's no skippable tracks. To me, that's a great album. When you can listen from beginning to end, you're not skipping any tracks at all. You're like, okay, this is, as a whole, this is a great album. But there's some great songs on there. But yeah, I never could really get into that. But yeah, I was always more West Coast. What's your favorite Tupac album? What do you think is his best album? It's hard because he released more. It seems like he released more albums after he died than when he was alive.
I know. All Eyes on Me is good.
That's my favorite.
Really good.
That's my favorite.
Machiavelli is kind of like slow moving.
Yeah.
I bought it. There's a few good songs.
Yeah. That's the way I feel about that one too.
The rap was good. The rhymes were good. It's just I think I just couldn't get into it as much as I wanted to.
Right.
That's one of the last tapes I ever bought.
Okay, cassette tape.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, when they're still cassetting, except probably in the mid '90s. I think.
Yeah.
Something around that time.
Well, that was his last release before he died.
Yeah, and some people thought, well, he's really alive because Machiavelli, the room.
That's what they thought.
Machiavelli was some famous artist or something like that, and then he faked his own death, and then he popped, here I am, years later.
Right. There's people still believe that.
Yeah.
There's pictures on the internet that he's living on some island somewhere or something, and that's why he keeps releasing albums. It's like, and part of me was kind of like, well, maybe that's true because, I mean, I understand that most artists have a whole bunch of songs in the vault. I get it. They have B-sides. They have all this stuff they never released. They say Prince, when he died, he had enough to like fill like 50 albums or something worth of songs that he had of never released stuff. But it's like that much, like really, like Tupac was like releasing double albums like over and over, like years after his death. I'm like, I don't know. And they were good. Mm-hmm. Like B-sides generally, they're B-sides for a reason, right? They're not quite strong enough to go on the album. Right. Ones, But then he's releasing these double albums where it's like, okay, this is just as good as the stuff he was releasing when he was alive, you know?
These guys, these people, these I would say I think he was a genius in his own way.
Totally.
My wife told me years ago that I think University of San Francisco had a class just on Tupac poetry.
Oh yeah,
it was a class to take in college.
Right.
Because I'm saying these guys are constantly writing. They're like, I got something, I got to write it down.
Right.
And so you think of, like I said, where's those music coming? His mother owns all the rights to all his music because when we went to the museum, this thing,
right?
Everything on the bottom it says like his estate under his mom, Shakur's estate. Like on loan. Right. So she controls everything.
Yeah.
And so she releases it. And then you have this wall of all these different notebooks he wrote. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's amazing. They're the original notebooks. They're still intact. Spiral notebooks. And it has All Eyes on Me, like all his rhymes for this one album on paper right there encased in glass. Another one. He had hundreds of them on display. Actually, probably more like that. And then he had his rhymes, like the actual piece of paper. Mm-hmm. Like a wall. It's like a wall.
Wow.
Of just stuff. Like a ocean of just music.
His mind was just going all the time. Yeah.
And it's just amazing. I think he was the best of all time. I really believe he was. He was the best of all time. Okay. And just everything he said, I'm saying, California Love, all this stuff. Yeah. I'm saying he was and he was open to anything. He was open to anything. He was, let's try this, do this, come with a new idea and he's do it, dress himself all up like it's like to the movie Dune or something like that. Or like like these road warriors in the future. Yeah,
with the fur coat and the whole deal.
It was cool. I loved it. And growing up as a kid, I didn't realize that Tupac was on Digital Underground. Like that was him. That was his big break. Right. And so when we go to this museum, they have display. They have like an exhibit of every album he ever cut, and the movies around it from. Poetic Justice with Janet Jackson.
Oh yeah,
stuff like that, and he's just amazing. It was sad that he died. I kept track of like the speculation of how he died, who's behind it. It's a trip.
Did you ever see Above the Rim?
Yes,
that was one of my favorite roles.
My son just watched that.
Oh really? Yeah.
My wife goes, "You gotta watch this one."
It was good. Yeah.
It was really good.
That soundtrack has my favorite Tupac song of all time. It's called Pain. I don't know if you ever. I'm sure you have if you've seen it. I think it was released later on some of his actual albums, but when it first came out, it was only on that soundtrack. He had Pain and Pour Out a Little Liquor was the other song off that album. But that was a great movie. Was it Dwayne Martin? I think was then Marlon Wayans is in there. Oh yeah. Bernie Mac plays the homeless guy.
Was he a crackhead or something like that?
No, you're thinking of some Dream, Requiem for a Dream, I think, maybe. But no, in that one he was. I think he was trying to sell. He was trying to be friends with Tupac's character.
And Tupac just punk him all the time.
Oh yeah. Tupac was like this like drug lord, kind of like everybody knew him, everybody was scared of him, kind of thing. And then Marlon Wayans' character was friends with Dwayne Martin's character. Dwayne Martin's like this up and up, straight laced. He's all into basketball. He's trying to get a scholarship.
Trying to go to Georgetown or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole deal. But he's friends with Marlon Wayans, and Marlon Wayans kind of getting caught up in the wrong crowd with this. I think his name was Birdie. Tupac's name was Birdie in the movie, but. I think it's a great movie. Most people never heard of it. I think it's a great movie. It's
funny that people heard it. It's got great music too.
Oh, totally.
Got great soundtrack music from the 90s and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my son got to watch that one. That was a good movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but he got to watch it and appreciate it too. We try to tell our kids share our music. Number one, makes a lot more sense and compared to what he listens to. Mm-hmm. My daughter likes everything I like for the most part, and then of course she likes country too. So.
Oh yeah.
And
do you like country?
I got into the last couple of years. Now I like it. Before I didn't want to listen to it at all. Yeah. I couldn't stand it.
There was almost like a stigma there, like for you guys like us that are our age, like especially when we were younger, like high school. Like even if you heard a country song on the radio, you're like, oh, I kind of like that. You couldn't tell anybody that. It was like, oh, I can't say I like country.
Yeah, everybody's hip hop.
Right. Everybody had their cliques back then. You had the cowboy guys, you had the rapper guys, you had the grunge group. You had like all these people, and it was like everybody had their thing back then. And and I was like the rap guy. I was like, that's all I listened to back then. And then until like probably like mid high school, then I started getting into some of the rock and stuff. But But most people today will say, I like everything. And that's pretty much what I can say too, is like, I love, there's a lot of country I love. I mean, especially like old country, like Hank Williams Sr. I love, like Johnny Cash, that kind of country, folksy kind of stuff. Love it. But I mean, even some of the newer stuff, my daughter's a huge Taylor Swift fan, my older daughter. So she got me all into her, and I know her new stuff isn't country at all, but like the early stuff was. And, so I just, if it's good, I like it. I don't care what genre it is, you know. It's like whatever.
Even if it's a one-hit wonder, you know, to get. It's great. That's your song.
Right.
You do.
Right.
Actually, I like them all. Luke Combs. Chris Young.
Yep. There's a guy, Josh Turner, that I really like.
Oh, he's good too.
Yeah, he's got a real deep voice.
Yeah, he's got a pretty cool voice. And a lot of country singers, like coming up, they try to some they'll audition with that song because they show their voice.
Right.
So yeah, I can see those, but yeah, I listen to country every week, every month. I'm saying, but if I had a choice, I would just stick with my 80s and early 90s every single time. It's like it doesn't get old. Yeah, it never gets old. I don't know what it is. I can listen to Bobby Brown over and over again. Oh yeah, I can listen to Belle Biv DeVoe, Girls Poison all the time.
Yeah, dude.
Never trust a big boat.
Yeah, see, that was a funny one too because that album was great, and then they just fell off after that. Like they had the one kind of comeback with New Edition, where New Edition came back. All of them were in it, and they had that song "Word to the Mother." Yeah, remember that one? They were all there, dude. Like the whole old New Edition group was there, and that was a great song. But then after that, I was like, where did that happen to all those guys?
Yeah, they tried to do like a New Edition to kind of revamp their careers. Right. Johnny Gill, they branched Johnny Gill back when they were New Edition the first time. Yeah. And everybody, you know, and he had one good album, and that was it too. Johnny Gill, yeah. Ralph Tresvant, who was he had a couple good songs. I think Sensitivity, Stone Cold Gentleman. Yeah. He had some good hits, and after that was it. Yeah. And they were better together than they were apart. Totally. Ever. Yeah. And it's that's awesome. I didn't realize how big they really were. They were big. Yeah,
I think the only one that solo was probably more successful was Bobby Brown.
Oh yeah, most successful.
He had the Don't Be Cruel album that just was. I think almost every song on there was a single. Like he had everything on there, and then there was a follow up with Good Enough and Humping Around. Bobby, I think it was just called Bobby. That was like him. But even after that, like he tried to do stuff after that, and where'd he go? Like he just did nothing.
People thought he got too old or it wasn't great enough. I think music was just changing so much that I think now it was for times it became irrelevant. Right. Because that's when. Yeah. The rap really was taking off, and hip hop was just huge, and so there's no room for R&B anymore. Right. And I think that's what happened. R&B had to take a back seat. Yeah. But now I think it's coming. Yeah, now it's starting to come back. I think Bruno Mars, in some ways, it seems like he really is bringing it back a lot. Just because, and if you listen to the other one, he sings with I think they're called Silk Sonic. Listen to them too. They're on the radio. You probably heard some of the songs, just don't realize it's them. Okay. But you hear a lot of Bruno Mars in there. Right. But they are amazing. They sing like the stuff that we grew up as kids, like the late 80s.
I remember Silk. You remember Silk from back in the 90s? There was, yeah. Oh yeah. How did that song get radio play? I listen to that now. I'm like, oh my gosh, this song is like so overtly sexual. But it's like they're playing it in our dances and stuff, and I'm going, what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to get us like in the back room or something?
I'm sure the teachers are like either listening and enjoying that, we'll let it pass, or they're like, dang, you let the teacher say that. Well, it's too late now. Yeah, it's too late now. At least they weren't throwing balloons between us all and keeping us apart. Right. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think people got too sexual in the school dances. So I think everybody's just having a good time. But man, I'm saying Silk. What is it?
Shy.
Oh yeah, Shy.
Yeah. Acapella stuff.
First time that I saw your brown eyes. Yeah. That song was cool. Yep. And we could get myself singing. Be sitting there singing like you just lost the woman left you, the dog died. Right. You're just like, oh my god.
It's like country. It's
like country. Yeah. And it was so much fun. I'm like, God, man. I think our lives. I think we're the last great generation. Yes. Man. I think we're the last great generation for music. Yeah. I think everything else is being regurgitated. I'd say, like I said, with the exception of Bruno Mars, a few out there that are still keeping it real and bringing and keep giving it its respect. But I think other than that, what are we in? Yeah. What are we living nowadays? Right. It's crazy. It's true. Country still is trying to stay country, and there's not really any rock and roll. Anything that's going on nowadays is more like underground. You have to really find it to find some good stuff. Right. Like my and I don't get into this. One of my cousins, he lives in Slow County. His son is into like death metal kind of stuff.
Okay.
And he'll post stuff on social media of his son playing it. So he's good at guitar.
Oh yeah.
But it's like
right.
And but he loves it. Well, the kid can play anything else too. My dad played guitar all through his life.
Yeah. Did you ever play any instruments?
I never did. I always say, go learn from your dad. And my dad never had patience. Just learn yourself. Nobody taught me. Learn yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to hit the chord. This hurts my fingers. Oh, you gotta let them get raw.
Right.
Get raw. Promise you'll be fine. And bleed don't matter. That's the way it is. They're bleeding, Dad. Oh, get out of here. Yeah. And that was like one lesson. I'm done.
Right.
But my dad played, and he had him and his friends had a band in the 70s. Not anything huge, just regional area. It was called Latin Pride, they called it, and they played a lot of the cover music and stuff like that, and their own stuff too. My mom tells me like, when we're dating, because they've been dating since they've been together 14 years old.
Dude,
so
that's
imagine my
awesome.
son, 14 years old, with a girl, and to this day married.
Right.
They're married. They're like 64
Your parents are still
old.
married today?
Yeah, 64
that's so
years
awesome.
Old, 64 years old.
Wow.
And, they had him when they were 16. So
wow,
it's like,
dude.
So yeah, back then that was very possible. That was a big deal. Only one person worked, and you could afford to live on your own.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that.
No.
But yeah, I'm saying he played all this music, and my mom would say like, I hear all these girls like saying, "Oh, Tony, that guy's so hot, so cute. So look at his voice." My mom was in the background. She was just
she didn't say she's with him.
I'm loving it. That's my man. They can tell whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. I was listening,
right.
And she loved it. And he would play like at the Graduate or or play at the Grange Hall or the Ori Grande Regional Center.
Right.
He would play all these local places, and I don't know if they were packed, but he was a good guitarist for a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, fast forward, he got more into. My dad was an ordained minister, so he got into more worship music at church. And then he would always mess around in the garage. We'd say, "Dad, sing this song, do this, do Batman, do whatever." He was like, we were like just making requests, and he would always be able to work it out. He was very music inclined. His whole family was very music inclined. My grandmother played the harp, and she could sing.
Oh wow!
Piano. My dad could mess. My dad played like 5-6 different instruments. He could just play just mess around. He just learned. Just so smart with music.
Right.
And for me, it's just like he didn't have this thing. But to this day, I tell myself I'm gonna go down to and get lessons. I think this year I've been telling myself for the last.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna get lessons. I want to get a guitar. I want to do something more than just work and go home and cater to everybody.
Yeah, they got this new guitar center over here.
I saw that.
My friend Dan, he teaches. He does the guitar lessons over there.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I think I got like $40 a lesson.
Yeah. You should go check it out.
I'm gonna go out there and I really want to do it. I gotta put some time myself. Get a guitar. I'm always looking at the thing. Dad, I gotta give something back. I gotta do something.
Yeah.
I gotta play. And my dad was a really good singer growing up. I loved listening to him. I really didn't get to. I got to listen at home, but for the most part, I would get him to listen. I would listen more at church and hear his voice.
Yeah.
And he played we would go to my great grandmother's house. And he played 96 Tears.
Oh yeah.
With Oregon, he would always do stuff. He's just always goofing on. Why don't you sing a whole song? Why don't you finish a song?
Yeah.
Instead of shuffling to the next one.
Right.
You had a good time.
That's awesome. All right. So, do you have a? This is kind of a difficult question for some people because it takes a little thought, or not. Some people just throw it out.
Uh-huh.
But do you have something, either a band or an artist, singer, that in your lifetime has been the most influential to you personally? Not just where they become more than just I like that sound or I like that song, but they actually mean something to you more than that. It actually has an impact on you.
That's a good question, because when you listen to so much music, and you have little snippets of your life, you just that one gets me there and there.
Yeah,
it's kind of difficult. I think, sheesh.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean,
that's a hard one. I'm thinking. I'm starting to think in my head, thinking 70s music or early 80s. That would probably get me. I don't think anything really stands out. I think I just have so many moments. You know what? I would say something like the music. I'll Be Sure. There's a couple artists.
I'll Be Sure. There's one I haven't heard of in a long time.
Stevie B. Keith Sweat. Those kind of guys.
Okay.
I think those are the ones that influenced me the most, because in the time of my life, it was kind of awkward for me. You know, growing up as a kid, I was sociable, but in the right situations. But I was more of an introvert, so I would like kind of an oddball, kind of nerdy. And my cousins and my brother, they're all more outgoing, had more popular girls and blah, blah, blah. And I was more like off a little bit. So I was like, that's my kind of my escape. Like think about moments in your life and the songs. Right. And it made me happy. Made me happy to hear those guys sing, you know? Right. Because it always reminded me of the camaraderie with the guys. Okay. Because I had several cousins. We're all 1 year apart, so a lot of us went out together. That's awesome. Like my brother, my cousin, my other cousin, we all go out parties or whatever it was. And so we heard that music. I'm saying I think those three guys probably the ones that really like I listen to a lot, like continuously. And then to this day, when I hear that music, it just it takes me back. I just feel so good. Yeah. Those are good times. Like, you know, there's times you could just escape and not worry about nothing. Music was an escape. Music was really an escape. And when you hear "Spring Love" by you think about like, it just makes me happy inside. It just makes me happy. It thinks about like, you know, just thinking about high school when you're in junior high, you're just carefree. You had no worries to worry. Think about, we didn't have much to worry. Kids have a lot more to worry about now, but a lot more distractions. We just could focus on one thing at a time. And just enjoy the moments. Now it's just kind of like everybody's trying to grab a moment just for a second to be temporary happy. Back then you were just sincerely fulfilled by what was being sung on the radio, on your tape deck, or whatever it was. And I really, really enjoyed it. So,
did you ever find yourself trying to sound like those singers? Like, are you a singer? Like, do you like to sing when you're by yourself, or do you like to try to emulate? I used to. I'm saying, like my dad has good chops. My daughters are pretty good. For me, I think when I used to be. People always told me, you know, you have a good voice. You know, you can sing. It runs in your family. I'm not a skilled singer, but I think when you try to mimic the sounds they make, like, and I don't know how to read music notes or anything like that, but it just you got to mimic based on what your voice could do. Right. And sometimes it come out weird, and I find myself recording stuff to hear myself. Oh, so really? I enjoyed it. And I would get compliments from time to time. Oh yeah, you sound good, blah blah blah. But I'm like, I never took it seriously enough to where the only time I really took it serious enough is when I once joined the choir at church for about 2-3 years. Okay. And so basically it would tell you like what kind of, some people are like alto, tenor, tenor. Yeah. And they say, oh, you're a tenor. Basically, they just have you like say they hit a keynote on the piano and you have to make that sound. Right. And they okay, now we know your vocal ranges and this is where you fit. Okay. So what were you? Do you remember? Tenor. Okay. I was a tenor, and it was fun. I had a good time. And I guess there's a way when you sing, like the way you say the words, if you sound clearly, like if you say a lyric, and you conjugate correctly, you say the words correctly, it's supposed to sound better, more clear. Right. And the people tell me I did well with that. So yeah, I'm saying, do I sing now? It's been a while. Yeah. My daughter sings in the shower all the time. But we gave her lessons for a while when she was little, and she would perform in front of like the retirement centers. Like, okay, you know. Does she still like to sing? She still loves to sing, but she doesn't take it serious like she did before. I go, you should sing still. I go, her friend is an amazing singer. Her friend's like, I've seen her where she started 2 or 3 years ago, and now she sings on these like these high school style Broadway shows. She did Grease not too long ago. Oh, nice! And she has an amazing voice. She was Sandy in the Grease one. Okay, and now she's doing Chicago. This is her daughter's friend. Her friend. Okay. Yeah, so the local high school, Pioneer Valley, at the Performing Arts Center, I think next year, like March or April. You should check it out. Yeah. They're gonna do the play Chicago. Oh, nice. And she's gonna be Velma. Is that Catherine Zeta-Jones or Renee Zellweger? Catherine Zeta-Jones. Catherine Zeta-Jones. Okay. And I heard her singing the other day. We all stayed over the weekend. We stayed in Cambria. For a day, and we all hung out and stuff like that over there and watched the Cambria lights, and I heard her singing. We went to my friend's hotel room. We're just kicking back, having some wine, and we could hear my daughter's friends just kind of singing through her notes, and she has an amazing voice. I told my daughter, you should keep singing. Oh, she's all embarrassed. Dude, you sing really well. Did she get stage fright or?
I don't know. I think she does. I think it's confidence level, but she sings really good. Of course, in the shower, she doesn't hold back. She's like, ah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna record her more.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Like, I always think about, like, you know, the Doors, like Jim Morrison. Mm-hmm. Like, the first couple times that they played live, he would sing with his back to the crowd because he was shy and he didn't know.
Think about that.
But as soon as the audience started to respond and show that they liked that his voice sounded good, he became like almost kind of like an egotistical like front man, to where it's like it became all about him now, you know? So I think for a lot of people, that's kind of what you need. Not that you want to be an egotist, but I mean, for a lot of people that have good voices, they just need that. They need to know that other people think so. So it's like, I bet if your daughter, if she like sang in front of a group of people, like at a I don't know, high school talent show or something, and she got like a standing ovation, I bet she'd be more likely to start doing it in front of people more often.
I think she
would.
And when she was a little girl, like she was like 7, 8 years old, she you could tell she'd be happy, but she always needed that, like you had to confirm and tell, hey, yeah, you did good. But she did well. I'm saying, I just wish she would have done it longer. She has a good voice, so hopefully maybe one day she'll pick it up. I go, she should be out there with her friend performing. I mean, she's really good at what it does. She plays one sport at school. She plays volleyball. She doesn't do anything else. I'm like, you need to pick up something else.
Yeah,
you got too much free time.
Well, that's what her friend does is more like it's musical, of course, but it's also acting.
Yes.
Right. So is she into that as well, or just?
I think she could. I think like I said, she needs to build her confidence.
Right.
Because I think she could totally do it. I'm saying she's got that. When you have a gift like that, it sucks that you don't use it. And I've had a lot of missed opportunities. And I don't want to tell my son in public was like, at church, at a choir or Christmas program or a funeral for my grandfather with my dad, singing with my dad or singing with him at home and stuff like that. But yeah, my brothers, I have 2 younger brothers. One's like a year and a half younger, one's like 9, 10 years younger. But they can sing too. It's crazy. They're just natural voices. They don't have like my little brother. That kid used to he has books and books of rhymes, and I heard him rhyme. He's actually can rap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's like a 90s kid, so it's like...
Dude, you guys could start like a modern day Belle Biv DeVoe or something, man.
You could totally do it. You could totally do it. It could be like Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Where they do a little bit of this and do a little bit of hardcore.
Rock, rap, yeah.
And they actually can sing too. I remember when my grandfather passed away, it was all 4 of us, my dad, me and my 2 brothers singing some songs for the family and for everybody in attendance. And but it was nice just to hear everybody's voices, and everybody has different levels. But yeah, definitely, I'm saying it just runs the night. I used to hear my dad and them just like go to my grandmother's house in Oceano, and just everybody would sing all this. He has 5 sisters, and he has 2 other brothers. There's 8 of them. And so they all can sing. The only one I don't think can sing is his younger brother. 2 of his brothers. They can't sing.
Yeah.
They never even tried, but the daughters all could sing. They all could sing. So, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. My wife can't sing to save her life. I'm like, who sings that song? Yeah. Oh yeah, let's keep it that way. Can you pass something? Let's keep it that way. I go.
So she sings. You just tell her she shouldn't.
It sounds like she's being strangled. It sounds like she's.
Hey, it's being recorded, and your wife's probably gonna listen.
She told me she's gonna listen to it. I told her. She goes, "What? It's 3 hours long." I go, "Because we talk different subjects. This, and that." She goes, "Oh, you're gonna have plenty to say," she says. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, well, I'm gonna listen to it." Because obviously you guys went to school together, right? And so you guys know each other, and so she's interested in saying it. But I'm saying she sings, and it's like she'll sing a song, and God bless her, because you know what, she's completely comfortable. She knows she don't have the best singing voice, right? And it reaches different levels. Yeah. And she was singing the song, and I go, "Oh my God!" And she's just laughing. She's herself. She's having fun. Yeah. Not gonna knock her for it. Not gonna discourage her for it. I just like, "My God, you cannot sing. You can't sing, pobrecita." And, but she loves it. She has a good time. If we're dancing at a gathering, or I don't know, it could be at where we're at. And she's having a good time. She loves it. Yeah. Would
she do like karaoke and stuff?
No, she won't do karaoke. She just kind of likes to be in the shadows and in the dance floor and just
like singing along with the music.
And she finds a song she loves and she just goes off and she does not care, and that's fine. I'm happy with that. She's comfortable. I'm not gonna discourage her. But my gosh, the poor lady. She's like, but yeah, that's
awesome.
You heard that, babe?
Yeah. She's gonna like that.
Love you.
So, all right. So for this portion, then do you consider yourself a political person?
I think so, because I think with politics, I think some people make subjects about politics, but it's really about ethics, morals, values.
Yes.
And people like what's called politicize it. Oh, you're so political. I go, no, it's not about politics. My wife's not she's not into politics. She doesn't like that, so she doesn't care about that stuff. But I grew up as a kid. Since Ronald Reagan was president, so I really started paying attention. I thought he was amazing.
Yeah.
And
we just went to the Reagan Museum for the first time.
Oh, did you? It's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I went years ago.
Got to go on Air Force One and the whole deal. It was great. Yeah. And I have a lot more. I mean, I've always liked him, but I have more respect for him now that I learned more about him. But anyway. No.
We went there. It was awesome.
Yeah.
The museum and just everything. But like I said, as a kid, I remember him. Jimmy, I don't remember when Reagan when he got elected. It was 1980. When he got elected, so I was 5 years old. It was on second term. I was born in 75, so I was like, what, 12?
Right.
12, 11, 12 when he was in finished up the second term. So, but yeah, I'm saying it's all about, to me, politics is about morals and values, I'm saying, because they try to politicize it, try to put in a box of me, it means nothing to you. It's just politics fake. It's smoke and mirrors. It's lies behind your back. It's little slips of paper, money, whatever it is. Kind of lifestyle. It can be that way, but it's about morals and values. That's why it's so strong. I always pride myself to be in my current events, know what's going on in your community, know what's going on in the world, your state, just all that stuff. And now it's been told me like, well, why do you care so much? You can't do anything about it.
Right.
I go, it doesn't matter because it means something to me.
Yeah.
Because I want to know searching for truth in things so that I don't have the wool covered over my eyes. I'm blind to everything.
Right.
I don't be ignorant to what's going on around me.
Right.
And why people do what they want. I've always been kind of that kid. I was quiet. I can tell you, I was kind of quiet. So I would like sit around. I was just listening to adults talk about stuff. Like the kids get playing outside. I'm sitting there listening to adults.
That's awesome.
I sit there listening to adults, hear what they talk about, and when I go visit my grandmother and my grandpa. My dad's dad, they talked about like this and that, and you hear about this, what's going on with this, what current event, what's going on in the world, and it always intrigued me. And I've always been a history kid. I like history, even in school. I think that's one of my strongest thing. I would like to know what's going on. I just like history. I love it.
Right.
And I always want to have answers to why things are. So with politics, like they say, they call it. I've always said number one, U.S. history, number one,
right,
and then world history. And mankind and things like that. So yeah, I would say if they want to call me, I'd say call myself political,
right?
Just because to me it's more of a moral passion.
Yeah, and it's so simple what you just said. Ethics and morality is really what it's about. But I've never heard it said that way before. But that's exactly right. And I think that's why people, because you say politics, people think, oh, who's president? The elections, you think that's all politics is. It's like, yeah, but that's the stuff that really, that's the surface stuff. Like for most people, when you're voting for a president or any form of office, or you're voting on a bill or a proposition, it's your ethics and morality that are causing you to vote a certain way in that way, right? If you're voting for a certain president, it's because, for most people, it's because you think that person holds to more of your own.
Yeah, they align more.
Exactly, right? So, and that's really all you're doing, but that's what people care about. Ethics and morality. How does this affect me? How does this affect my family? These laws that they're putting into place, these things that they're doing, right? That's what it's all about. And that's why we feel so passionately about certain things, because up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I could care less about any of that stuff. Like I wasn't like you. I wasn't like from early on really into it. I was like, I was always kind of like, well, who cares? I don't care who's the president. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, the government's all jacked up anyway. The whole system's screwed. We're just going to be, it's just like, that was kind of my attitude. But then as raising a family and starting to see, especially living in California, starting to see some of the policies that are being pushed and
how it affects your family.
Yes.
Your kids may not see it, but you see how it affects you.
Right. And I see how it affects them, even if they can't see it. Right. Like a lot of the stuff that's being pushed. So do you have some examples of what you kind of just said, of things of like morality and things that are politically and morality driven?
Yeah, I think it's always been. I think it's paying attention, like how we're repeating history, like how things are today when it comes to like it could be. Like I said, we went to music earlier about how the industry is all connected to government and how government does things. At first, the government was basically saying, you can't put this on the radio, you can't do this.
Right.
The Federal Communications, the FCC, they wouldn't allow you. That was explicit. You had to put labels. Now it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Because then you got to follow why that is.
Right.
Why is government or the decision makers out there for us are saying it's okay now, it's acceptable now.
Right.
Well, because is it more than just money? And I told you, remember, music's influential. So if the government allows certain things to go, I think now I see all these music artists being very political now.
Oh yeah.
And they're using their platforms to push their political views or their not political, their moral views.
Right. Right.
You know, so if you basically have a government that's basically like, yeah, this is all good now. It doesn't matter. Because it makes money. It makes a lot of money.
Right.
And they want to push a message. So if a president's trying to push a certain message about what he believes in and what direction he wants the country to go to or what he has ideas. Remember, it's not just him. It's just all his administrators and everybody around him. Right. That's telling him stuff because he's not the expert. Everything like, hey, we should do this, we do that. Hey, we think that's a good idea. I'll talk about that in the State of the Union.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Sounds good. And and then they go, well, how do we can reach the masses? Social media, music, all this stuff.
Yeah.
What do they listen to? What do they really TikTok? Whatever it is.
Right.
And like, people use their platforms, TikTok, to send messages about this and that. What's conspiracy theory, or it's about the president, or it's about the government. All these little snippets, using whatever they can to get the message out.
Right.
So people that are trying to do for the greater good. Some people don't have great intentions, in my opinion, in my belief, not just opinion, my beliefs.
Right.
Don't have great intentions, don't have pure intentions. So you got to figure out what's the intention behind it. Just like music, what's the intention behind the words? What are they trying to convey about themselves? What are they trying to convey to you? What are they trying to express to you to convince you?
The influence, yeah, for
influence
sure.
You. Well, what is in politics? What is your local leaders trying to influence you? What is their ideas? Why are they all in agreement? Why is that one person dissenting, holding out? What is it? And so like when you hear stuff and you hear people give speeches and you hear all these different things, you start looking between the lines about what they really mean behind things. So as an adult now, and your kids don't understand this, they will, and they probably do now, but are still trying to figure it out. It's like when things, laws and bills are being passed and things like that are being done, or speeches are being made, you start listening to other people saying, like breaking things down, and you're like, wow. It makes a lot of sense. Not because not because it aligns what I feel like, but you get to hear the opposing viewpoints and realize, hey, I better take a second look at this one. Right. Even if I can't go to the president and change his mind or veto something, I can basically just I can basically say, you know what, kids, be careful. You know, I think that my kids look at me like, Dad, you're so like political. Right. Well, I was like, oh my God, here we go again. Especially her, my follow on me. I basically vote Republican or conservative, you want to call it. Right. And my follow is diehard Democrat. Will just basically, my opinion, will just like doesn't care how bad the guy is, he'll vote for him just because he's Democrat. Yeah. See,
I've never understood that because I personally don't put myself in either one of those two camps, Republican or Democrat. Sure. I definitely lean more conservative in my personal values, but I don't care as much about the party. Like I've said before, like if there's two, let's say our next presidential campaign, let's say the Democratic candidate is talking about things that I agree with more than the Republican. I'm not going to sit there and be like, nope, I'm a Republican guy all the way. I'm only voting Republican. To me, that's dumb. Like, it should be about like who do you think is going to run the country the best? You know, and I've said before, I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about how are you going to run the country? You know,
and who's going to stay true to the Constitution? That too. Who's going to protect it? Right. Instead of trying to fix it.
Right. Right. Get rid of all this stuff.
We're going to fix it.
All the old white men wrote hundreds of years ago. Yes. We get to get rid of all of that, you know.
And isn't it amazing that these men, maybe there's some women back in the background, their wives talking to them probably too, hey honey, you know, John Adams, whatever, you should probably, you know, that's you know, they probably helped women. There was good women behind those men.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, but like I said, you know, they were so wise because remember they were ruled by another country, by the United Kingdom for so many years.
Right.
You know, by a dictatorship, and broke free. They learned from that. And remember, some of those guys were Brits.
Right.
Like George Washington, he was the British Army before he crossed or said broke free and became, you know, the general.
Right.
One of the greatest generals of all time. And basically they were just like, these guys were able to construct something that is timeless, that people say, well, it doesn't even apply to nowadays. Yes, it does.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yes, it does. Yep. I'm like, they kept it simple. They kept it so simple, and they wrote things in a way so that government is held itself accountable to you and me and us American citizens, or anybody that's nationalized citizen. Everyone that has the right to vote here, they can basically have a say.
Right.
Right now, they're trying to throw this crap where, like, if they word it a certain way, they say it a certain way, you'll start believing, oh, you know what? They start questioning the Constitution. A whole bunch of white slave owners.
Right.
Or whatever it is. You know, we understand the times.
Yeah.
Even for the Bible, there was the way they used to stone people in the street.
Yeah.
But times had changed and things had different, so they put different laws in place for that, so there'd be a more civil society.
Right.
And that's what they were trying to do here, have a more civil society. Now back then, those guys were killing each other. They were going to have a duel. Oh, you don't want my bill? Let's go duel it out there. 16 paces this way, 16 paces, go have a shootout.
Right.
But like I said, like you said, you know, you don't have to sway a certain way. When I couldn't wait to vote, you know, I didn't get to vote, and I didn't turn 18 till 93. So by then it was already, Bill Clinton was president already, right?
I believe so.
He just became president?
I believe so, yeah.
So I think I voted in the next election.
Okay.
And because you have to wait 4 years.
Yeah.
So yes, I think I did.
It was probably 92, I think, is when Clinton was elected, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
Because he played 2 terms.
Yeah.
So, but back then, it was very difficult for a young person like me to like decide who's better, because back then that was the original, still in a way, traditional Democratic Party. Like they still held onto a lot of values, and if you looked at them side by side, Republican, because back then it was just Republican, Democrat, there was no independent, there was no other stuff like that.
Right. Green Party.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. And then they shared a lot of the same morals and values.
Right.
It was really hard to decide. You go, well, certain government policy they suck at. They seem to higher taxes when Democrat comes in office. They hire everything. Everything gets freaking expensive.
Right.
And their foreign policy has always been weak and more apologetic. And that still holds true to this day. And then the Republicans, they kind of, it was kind of balanced each other out in a way. And you know what? It was hard. Now there's such polar opposites. I don't even sometimes recognize the Republican Party. They fight with each other so much, and then the Democrat Party is completely out of left field. They're way out there and somewhere far away.
Right.
But you know who's that I really admire based on what I've seen and heard and watched is Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
I'm saying the stuff she says over and over consistently.
Right.
Represents more of the traditional values and back to the Constitution. And on top of that, for being a woman,
yes,
she is a lieutenant colonel in the reserves. She's been active duty, non-active duty. She goes back and forth. She's still in the military.
Yep.
So she understands the intricacies of the military and things like that. And she has a lot of people. A lieutenant colonel, you got a lot of people under your leadership. You got probably hundreds or 1,000 people.
Oh yeah.
And I think she does with I forgot it's logistics or something like that. But anyways, she the thing she says, it impresses me. I'm saying I think, and the Democrats went after her. They were trying to destroy her, not because she sucked, because she threatened their way.
Right.
You know, and I've heard stuff about this 16-year plan they've had for a while to like change the whole course of the world and the United States, and you start thinking about the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and everybody else.
Right.
You start looking back and you're like, holy
yeah.
Why didn't they teach this in history class, dude?
Right.
Why not? Back then it would have been completely acceptable.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But
they try to erase it from the books.
Yeah. So they kept her from being nominated. I think if she'd have ran, I'm telling you this. We may not have Trump as president,
right?
Because she was that strong, and or she would at least give him a run for money. And maybe came around the second time,
right? And
became president. I think she's the one that would bring. I think she was the one that would bring Democrats back to the traditional way Democrats used to lead,
right?
And I think you'd be like, if you watched her, have you seen her talk? And she's a trip, right? Because it's like, God, that's like the old days,
right?
But then you got people like AOC and all them, and they're completely like, they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing, right? Is like a lot of the people on the left, in the Democratic side, are, I mean, they're almost backing away from kind of the radical people like AOC and you know what they call the squad, right? All those, you know, what's Ilhan Omar and some of these other, because they're so extreme. But it almost comes back to bite them, because it's like, I don't know what it is. Like they think, I don't know what they're thinking. Like they think that most of the country is backing these radical policies that they want to put. They must, because they try to put them forward. And then when they don't go through, they're just like, well, I don't understand. I don't understand this. Like, what do you mean you don't? Go out and talk to people, you know? Don't just look at your own little support group who thinks, like AOC, who thinks you're just the greatest thing ever. And they're just going to believe everything you say. Like, go poll America first and say, like, okay, this is what we want to do. What do you guys think about this? I mean, and ask Democrats, ask your own party, and see how many of them are in line with some of these radical things that you want to put into place, you know?
It's not like they're only polling their own neighborhood. They're not polling anybody else's neighbors.
That's what I'm saying.
Communities.
Yeah.
The same.
Well, it's like how they always say, like, and this always cracks me up, because, you know, you look at like the Academy Awards, you look at some of these organizations that are mostly left-leaning liberal groups. I just as a policy, right? Like you look at Hollywood as mostly left-leaning liberals, you know, and they get up there and they give some political speech at their Oscar acceptance speech, and they get all political, and they're saying, oh, in the news, like, oh, she's saying these radical things. You listen to what she said, and it's so radical. But it's like, it's not radical, because everybody in the room agrees with what you're saying. Like, you want to be radical, go to a Republican convention and say those things. That's radical. Like, and the same the other way, like the Republicans, if you're just preaching to the choir, that's not radical. There's nothing, you're not really putting yourself in any danger by doing so. But if a Republican goes to, let's say there was a conservative actor that won the Academy Award for best actor, and he's up there giving a speech, and he starts talking about how he's pro-life and how he's for traditional marriage, and he's for like a lot of these things, right? He would get booed off the stage. They might even take his Academy Award away from him and say, like, no, dude, you have no place here. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like, that would be brave. Yeah. So whenever I see somebody pull something like that, I'm like, oh, dude, you really got that going. You know, it's like, you're brave, you know, because now you're at risk. You're possibly going to lose all your work. Hollywood might say, you know what, this guy's a right-leaning conservative. We're not going to hire him anymore. And you see that happening all the time, like with Gina Carano. I think you saw. She's right. Yeah. That whole thing with her.
I think the Daily Wire picked her up.
Yeah.
And then she has a movie coming out.
Yeah, the Terror on the Prairie, I think it's called. Or
because people are like, oh, she's great until she speaks. Right. And it's just like President Donald Trump. I'm saying. Right. They hate him so much. Yeah. And I say they because we call the current establishment now, who's in control now.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you say they because you don't want to misgender.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm old school. I just call it like it is. Like I call music. Who's the greatest rapper and who's not, you know? Right. And so So it's like, no, but it's just, it's just, everything's political correctness, and it's like, it's dumb because it just, you got to be watching what you say, and blah, blah, blah. And if you at work, you can't, crucify him. Right. It's like everything's a mob now. Everybody's like angry. Like AOC, the squad, they're always angry. Yeah. They're so angry. I go, why? And you hear all the time, you say, everything's based, the whole party's based on emotion. Right. And it's like, but like Bill Clinton was like the last, I think during his leadership, I think he was the last administration where the Democrats had not lost their way yet. Mm-hmm. Because after that, Bush came in. He was kind of wishy-washy, and I literally liked the guy for a long time. And I first obviously because more conservative Brits, but I realized he was kind of playing it both ways. And so I saw at the end of his presidency and then years to come how his policies or his administration's policies and what decisions he made, how it affects us negatively in a lot of ways, and how it closely aligns with the Democratic Party. It's crazy, and I don't like the fact that him and Obama were really good friends, right? And they were just a little too close. And they were showing who's those, dude. I'm like, good. And then I hear about Skull and Bones and all these other places, the clubs they were into, and how they don't talk about it, with the silence, it's like Fight Club kind of thing. And you don't talk about certain things, and you start delving into it. But like I said, the Democrats right now, they've lost their way. I don't know who the heck they are. They don't know who they are. They fight with each other. They eat their own over there. Oh yeah. And
but do you feel like, though, sorry to break in,
no worries.
like do you think that like on the Republican side of things, they've almost become castrated to where, because my biggest beef with the Republican side, and I have more beef with that side than I do Democratic, only because
you're just the greatest disappointment of them, right?
Yeah, because they're supposed to be upholding my values and my thing, but I feel like they don't like, they're almost cowardly. Like, they don't stand up for things anymore. They fell asleep at the wheel for like 8 years. Yeah. During the whole administration, they fell asleep at the wheel. Right. I'm saying you had a president from the beginning. The minute he became president, he started talking trash about the Republican Party all the time. He was always talking, clowning them. I'm so funny. Look at me, I'm funny. Charismatic guy, whatever it is. But he just talked trash about it, and they didn't do nothing. They let everything. They let them make policy after policy. They didn't fight them on anything, and it just made me mad. Like, now they said, like, with the Speaker of the House, Mitch McConnell, whatever it is, the board leader, getting rid of him, and he needs to go. He's weak sauce. I'm saying it's not about just your leadership's based on how often you agree with each other. It's about what's behind what kind of decisions you're allowing to be made. Right. Why aren't you taking a stand? Why aren't you blocking these decisions? And he was allowing a lot of things. He's making a lot of concessions that now put us in a really bad light, economically, in every other way, right? And they just fight with each other all the time, and it's like they call them the rhinos, right? The rhinos, the old guard, the old fossils, the old dinosaurs that just don't want to safeguard the things that are valuable to you and me, and we're not just thinking of ourselves, thinking of our kids. We want our kids to inherit a load of crap, right? And not know what's going on and just believe everything they hear on TikTok or wherever it's at, hear everything they want to listen to, and just hear the snippets. They're not searching for truth. Right. They just want the Cliff Notes version. Yeah. They want the Cliff Notes version of everything. Right. And they don't really want they don't want to know the meat and potatoes. I'm meat and potatoes. Right. And so, like, when I share with people, like, whoa, where's that go? I never heard that before. I go, well, you need to learn. You need to read about General Byrd. Right. And back in the 1920s and 30s, you need to hear about what they were saying. There's video out there of people saying in black and white, like radio and on television, when there was still television out there in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, about some of these leaders saying stuff and how their families are still carrying on that legacy of stuff that's not so great. Right. And so you understand that this stuff's been planned out for years. Right. And it's always been that way. Mankind's always been a society, whether it's the Romans, whether it's the Egyptians, whether it's the British or Americans, where you got a whole bunch of rich people that come from a long lineage of whatever they're from, whatever their reasons are, and they carry that on, and they want to get richer. They're power hungry. They love being that top 1%, 2%, whatever it is, and the rest of us are just making money for them. It's kind of like that when you work for some guy. They, hey, Ryan, if you work really, really hard extra this year,
I'll finally get to buy my third Lamborghini.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you have...
Well, I'm barely making it.
Yeah. Yeah. You work really, really hard.
Right.
Those guys figure it out. They go, I'm not happy to work for me.
Yeah.
Well, with government and everything like that, you got people working for you for your benefit or the benefit of your circle.
Right.
And so what we do, we corrupt ourselves. We get corrupted.
Right.
And we get on these power trips where now we lose sight of everybody else, and you're just thinking about yourself and your constituents. Right. So, but like I said, with the Republican Party, they're fractured,
right?
And they got some guys holding on to these old things, or just scared to make a move because they've been in Congress for 40 years and they're afraid to what am I do at home? I'm going to knit with my wife, or I'm going to go fishing. I don't have time. That's all I know.
Right.
Been for 47 years.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose my position, but then you got to do the right thing.
Right.
You're going to lose it anyways.
Yeah.
Look at Nancy. She's gone.
Oh, yeah.
She got fired.
Yeah.
And she's gone. And then with Trump, they don't like him because he was a Democrat for a while.
Right.
And everybody loved him. Al Sharpton hanging next to him.
Oh,
hey, what's
yeah.
up, buddy? Can I get a picture with you? Or can I get a picture with you?
Right.
Like he was the guy. He had the party, blah, blah. He was the political insider, and he went outside that circle.
Right.
And he said, "Hey, you guys say I was doing this and doing that. Well, they were doing the same thing. I was with them, and they hate that because he exposed them. It's like you being your best friend and someone betraying you about your secret club or whatever it was, and they're telling everybody all this stuff. And you know what?
Yeah.
You know, they hate him because of it. But like I said, I'm hoping now it seems like it's starting to move forward in a better direction. We're making some headway, taking a stand on things as a country, and I'm hoping that we'll start getting backtracked and going back to those more, I would say, more moral and ethical way of running the country on behalf of the people.
How do you see that happening? Like, what do you think needs to happen in order for that to take place?
We're already in a political civil war. With words and bills and protests. I think it's going to get ugly because you see what's happening in China, you see what's happening in Brazil that you don't see on regular TV.
Right.
You only see it on one outlet, but you won't see it on the other outlet, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
How they're in the streets, hundreds of thousands or millions of them saying we're tired of this tyranny in our countries. That hasn't. We had the whole riots and stuff like that for BLM or other stuff like that. We had the riots in Portland, and that's completely okay. That was a summer of love, they called it.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, you destroyed your whole town. The people that were rioting on behalf of their friends were at the same time were destroying their own friends' neighborhoods.
Right.
So I think what could happen. We're at the precipice. I think we're really getting close that where we could have riots in the streets.
Right.
Like, I'm not just talking about like one BLM. I'm talking about everybody. I'm saying flooding. I imagine Congress not even get out of the chambers because they're surrounded by 500,000 people that don't want to leave.
Right. Right. So I've been talking about for a few years now this I call it the Great Divide. Right. And it's just because it's like they keep saying things like, well, we just need to compromise. We need to come together and we need to find a compromise. But the problem is, like, the issues that are being raised are so important, and the two sides that are holding their own sides on it are so polar opposite. How can there be a compromise? Like how can there be a compromise with something like, I don't know. I always use the same examples. I need to get some new examples because there's a bunch of them. But like abortion. How can there be a compromise there? It's like, well, this side believes that you're killing a baby. This side says you're not. What's the compromise? Like, you either are or you aren't, right? There's no like middle ground. Like, well, maybe you are, or I mean, there's a bunch of options you could look at. But I mean, I see it. What's happening in my mind is that we're doing this. Like the country has been divided in so many ways, and of course, the media is playing into that, and they're almost pushing that. It seems like the way that they report things on the news are very biased and one-sided. Like they're trying to start race wars. They're trying to start religious wars. They're trying to start
tribalism.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like they're purposely trying to divide the country. I don't know why, but it's like that's what we're doing. That's where pretty soon it's going to be like you're going to have the eastern United States and the western United States. And there's going to be a big Berlin Wall going down the middle of it, and the Eastern or the Western or what, I don't know which side would be which, but you'd have kind of the left-leaning liberal politics on one side. We have two presidents. We have, the conservative president leading the conservatives over here, and then vice versa. And part of me feels like that might not be such a bad thing. I mean, I understand that America is supposed to be the everybody coming together and mixing and getting along. Yes, we have different parties and different belief systems and all that. But like I said, it's getting so different that it's getting harder for people to see each other's side. Like whenever I talk to people and we talk about certain things, it gets, and that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because I think I want to be able to have these conversations with people, even if they disagree with me, but I want to talk about it to where we get to a point where we can get to a rational conclusion. But a lot of the people, nobody I've had on this podcast, because they probably wouldn't do it, but people I've talked to in person, they get very angry to the point like if I bring up something and say, well, I know what you believe, but what do you think about this? And instead of giving me a logical, rational answer behind what they believe, they call me racist, or they call me stupid, or a moron, or whatever. Like, they start name calling me and getting really, really upset. Like, I'm like, why can't we just have the discussion? But I know I'm going all over the place, but I guess the point I'm making is that and this is on both sides, that you see this on both sides of this fence, is that people become so ingrained and dedicated and loyal to their party and to their team, so to speak, that even when maybe the other party makes a good point, you can't tell them they made a good point. You can't agree with their good point, because that's the enemy. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, to where it's like we become to that point, and like, oh, I can't even say that, oh, this Democrat guy over here, he made a good point. Because then it's like, oh, you can't do that, or vice versa. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, and it's sad that we can't. So I think that's what it's going to take for us to get back to the point where we can start viewing this country as a whole, and acknowledging all of our differences, supporting all of our differences. Yes. But once we all get back to saying, okay, what's best for the country as a whole, maybe we can start making leeway. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you.
That's the thing I'm saying. It's just like as simple as your relationship with your wife, or my wife. We've been together 24 years and 21 years married.
Nice.
You have to have compromise. If you it's broken, and
right?
And you stop seeing things from their point of view. At least try to understand it, and accept that, and respect that view. Even if you don't agree with everything, which we don't. God don't put two polar opposite men and women together for no reason at all. Right. To help each other through life, right? Yeah. So the same thing with society. We need to help each other through life, and we need to help each other do things. We need to see, like my father-in-law, we don't agree with on these political views. We're polar opposites. Right. But I don't get angry at him. Right. I'll get like, what? I'm like, what? Kind of like that. But we take jabs at each other, and we do stuff, but we respect and we love each other. Right. And nowadays everything's just like they'll base that you're not a good person, right? Or that you hate them. Yeah, like if you disagree with someone's policy on something, they turn it to say, well, you hate them. Says who? Like, what are you talking about? Or you're perpetrating violence. Right. I feel like you just hate speech. I heard hate speech. I'm like, what? I'm like, so what people are doing is just like throwing out. They're recreating the freaking Urban Dictionary, and just like throwing stuff out everywhere and saying this is what it is. And if you say it enough, right, people start believing it, right? It's called propaganda. Yes. And for like people, conservatives, Republicans, what do you want to call it? We keep it simple. We keep it simple. So like compromise is important in your relationships with anybody, and then that equates to like your workplace. If you work in city government. Or if you're a council person, mayor, or whatever it is, what do they have to do? They have to be fair and impartial. They have to hear people out, let people speak for 3 minutes, hear their side. Yes. And then make an informed decision to see what's best for everybody, right? But they've already decided before that person starts talking for 3 minutes that they're wrong. Yeah. Do you see, that's the problem, right? There's no, I can't listen to this guy because I know he disagrees with me. Yeah. Well, what if he's right? No, it can't be. Yeah.
None of us should have that attitude, right?
Yeah, and some people make really strong arguments, like good detailed arguments. Wow, I see it that way. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to certain subjects, like for me, like abortion and things like that, there's no compromise.
Right.
I believe in securing life.
Right.
I'm like, there's a lot of people out there that can't have children.
Right.
Or I asked that young girl or that woman in college, I say, I have my whole future ahead of me. I can't stop. I'm about to graduate next year. I can't. I'm going to take care of this right away.
Right.
I got a future.
Right.
But people don't realize that when you do something like that, for instance, for that subject matter, is that you don't realize that if you would have just gave it a chance and waited, let nature take its course, that you wouldn't be, because we have kids, we know how much we love our kids.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine, like, if you decide not to have your daughter?
Right.
Your son?
Right.
I was on, my mom had me at 16. My mom got pregnant at 16.
Mm-hmm.
And the school found out she was pregnant, because this is in the 70s. Ooh, no. Number one, you're not only pregnant, but you're a pregnant Mexican.
Really?
Ooh, my mom told me, she said, hey, they called me to the office. The principal's there, I think the guidance counselor, some administrators were there, and they said, hey, we're not going to have a pregnant whatever in our school.
So they wanted her to get an abortion?
They said, you need to take care of this, or you can't be at school here anymore. She says, what? And mom back then, she said, I had a big mouth back then.
Right.
She told him every word. She told him F this, F you.
Right.
I'm not aborting my child.
Right. And this was you? This was her pregnant with you?
Pregnant
with
me.
Okay.
I don't mean once she was, but I think she was early on. And this is 1975. Mm-hmm. And so she said, screw you, screw your school, F you to everybody else. And she left the school, and she told my grandmother what happened. What? And she's like, she was appalled that they would even do that.
Right.
So nowadays, or even to recent years, think about all the kids that have a social pressure to say, hey, abortions is completely acceptable. Right. No worries. Right. You don't have to worry, but it's not a real. Yeah. Now they're trying to do verbiage. Mm-hmm. It's not real. It's not viable. It's not this until it's born. Come on.
Right.
They've showed video of when they're trying to go in there and get that baby. That baby starts moving around. I'm out of here. You ain't getting me. How does that work? Yeah. So like I said, I'm here talking to you today.
Right.
47 years later.
Yeah.
And I'm a member of my community. I have children, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm saying that I've had people I've known personally that had abortions, and they don't talk about the psychological and emotional turmoil a young woman goes through.
Oh no, they don't.
At any age,
right?
At any age of loss,
right? Of
guilt, they don't talk about that. But the thoughts of suicide, they don't talk about that.
Right. Well, statistically, the majority of women that have had abortions regret it. Statistically speaking.
Yeah, especially when they're old enough to have a maturity level.
Right.
Like, my gosh.
Yes. I mean, at some point in life, they do. But they don't show you that they don't tend to show you those people. They show you the person who's like, oh, like Michelle Williams, the Academy Awards.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I got an abortion because,
empowered.
Yeah, if I didn't get an abortion, then I wouldn't be here accepting this Academy Award. Yeah, and it's all this big old thing. It's like, dude, yeah, but like, see, to me, that all completely goes around what the issue is. It's like, and on episode 2 of this podcast, we got into a very long discussion about abortion with me and my guest, and a very great conversation. She was pro-choice, I'm pro-life, and it was a great discussion. But ultimately, we when we talk about abortion, we go here and here, and everybody goes all these different places. When the only real question is, when does life begin? Because most people wouldn't say, like let's say that the pro-choice says, well, I think abortion's okay. But that's because they don't believe they're killing a life. Most of them. Some of them will say, oh, I know I'm killing a life and I don't care. Most people would say, no, I'm not killing a life because it's not a life yet. Right? And if you say, well, what about when you ask them, when do you think life begins? They say, well, this particular guest said at the first breath. I said, okay, so let's say the baby's 2 weeks old. Is it okay to kill it then? No, that would be murder. Right? That would be murder. And they're totally against that. Right? So it's like, most people on the pro-choice side are against murder. It's just that they don't think what they're doing is murder, to where the pro-life people would say, and I know there's different levels of, even on the pro-life side, and they say, when does life begin? I believe sperm to egg is life. That's my personal belief.
Amen.
So I'm like, that's, to me, it's murder at any point after that. I mean, even look at like the morning after pill. Same deal to me. I mean, you're still, and people say, well, what about condoms? Well, that's different, because if it's anything that's preventing sperm to egg, I don't see that as killing.
Once conception is started,
yes. Once it's fertilized,
that's it.
That's the life.
You get a vasectomy, whatever it is. I'm saying
yes.
You're still enjoying your relationship with your wife, but
right.
But once someone becomes, I'm pregnant, life begins. I'm saying, and the life begins cycles very quickly too.
Right.
9 months, give me a break.
Right.
9 months. I'm saying within several weeks. Within weeks, heartbeat, this and that. But come on.
Right.
You're trying to stop life, and
yes.
So
that's a good point.
You're trying to stop life.
Yes.
You're trying to end life and in its beginning stages of life.
Well, because even if you hold to the stance and you say, I don't think it is actually a life until it's born. Let's say you hold that stance.
Sure.
I would say, okay, so let's take that and say, okay, let's say I believe the same as you, but sperm to egg happens. Now, what's going to happen to that if you just leave it alone and there's no medical complications or anything? You just let nature take its course, like you just said.
Like it's been doing it for
It's eventually going to go 9 months. It's going to be born. It's going to be a life. So even if you don't believe it's a life until then, you're still stopping it from becoming a life back here. Even if you don't believe this is a life back here at sperm to egg, you're still preventing it from becoming it. You see what I'm saying? So you're still stopping a life from happening, even if you don't believe you're actually taking a life, which...
Well, have you heard that joke by Bill Burr? He talks about it, but he uses cake as a thing. You know who Bill Burr is?
Bill Burr?
Bill Burr.
The stand-up comedian?
Yeah. He makes a perfect thing. He goes, you know what? There's a whole abortion thing. You know what? Everybody has this, and their audience goes, ooh, guy, I know it gets crazy when it comes to abortion. It gets weird.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, let's say you got a cake and you make the dough, you put everything in there, you put it in the pan, you put it in the oven, you stick it in the oven. Also, your friend gets to the oven, throws the thing right across the room, ruins the cake. Hey, man, what'd you do to my cake?
Right.
He goes, it wasn't a cake yet.
Right.
Well, it would have been you cake murdering SOB.
Yeah.
If you would, it would have been a cake.
Wow.
You would just let it go.
Wow, he actually said that, huh?
He said it. Oh, you gotta watch.
I bet he got busted for that one.
I don't know. He says whatever he wants to say, and he goes, but it would have been a cake.
Right.
You just let it bake.
Well, that's a perfect. So this is so awesome.
Bun in the
I gotta
oven,
find that.
blah, blah.
Yeah, I gotta find that, because one time I was talking about it, because it's the whole idea of my body, my choice. And I use the example of the oven being like the woman, you're baking a cake in the oven. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but just because it's in that oven doesn't mean you didn't play a part. You made the cake, right? From the man's perspective, because I've talked before. Let's say let's say your wife's a liberal or whatever, and she's just totally pro-choice, and you guys get pregnant, and she says, "I'm going to abort the baby." And you're like, no way, it's my kid, don't kill my kid. And you're crying and you're weeping. There's videos of this you can find online outside abortion mills where men are just weeping and crying. Please, just have the baby, give the baby to me. You can walk away. I'll never talk to you again.
No
Go
way,
away,
you're a sperm donor.
Yeah. And they just say you have no right at all to what happens to that baby after you've helped conceive it. And I get it. I'm not trying to sit here and say that the man's job isn't easier in the pregnancy and all that. Of course, he has the fun part. And then she has to carry the baby for 9 months, and then she has to birth the baby. Hey, I'm glad I'm not doing that.
Yes.
I'm not trying to say that at all.
Me too.
But at the same time, it takes two people to create that life, 3 people if you count God.
Yeah.
But, it's the whole idea of sperm to egg, and, a woman can't get pregnant by herself. If she's artificially inseminated, where's the semen coming from? Some guy somewhere, right? It still takes man parts and women parts to do it. So it's just
yeah, I believe people that try to explain it that way, it's not Bible, it's this and that. Either they don't believe in God,
right?
They don't believe in a creator,
right?
Or they just don't hold life sacred in that way. Mm-hmm. They don't hold it sacred at all,
right?
I think some people fake it. I think people that are like pro-abortion might have had abortion. I had abortion. It's great.
Yeah.
And then they put a sign, I'll eat my own child. I don't care. I'll eat it. I ate my child.
That's
and
nuts.
just crazy stuff. And you can tell they're just angry. They're just trying to be. It's just for shock and awe.
Oh yeah.
And they just they say all this crazy stuff, and I'm like, I bet you. Most time, maybe 8, 9, 10 out of 10, that those people are saying that may have had abortion probably went through some emotional trial after that abortion. You do. It's human condition. That's the way the Lord created you.
Right.
Is to grieve, to have guilt, conviction when you make mistakes.
Right.
You know, we're all accountable to somebody.
Yeah.
Accountable to your wife, accountable to God, accountable to your kids, whatever you do.
Yeah.
And we're built that way. We're made that way to feel love and compassion.
Right.
So I it's really hard to wrap my head around. There's some people that lack any compassion to understand that, even if they want to go to hold their position that abortion is completely great at any level. Now there's doctors doing abortions at 9 months, 10 months, or whatever. New York passed a law that they could stop it, or if the baby comes out. Oh, so hey man, so Ryan, do you want to keep that baby? Yeah. You're like, nah, just let it lay there until it can't breathe.
Right.
I'm like, and then you got like Veritas or all these or investigative reporters posing as a pregnant woman and talking to this abortion clinic, and this guy's like, they have
I heard that.
He's got like a little camera on the guy, listen to him saying, you know what if I don't want to keep it? Well, just let it lay there until it dies. Straight out. And now he's in trouble. Right. Why is he in trouble? Because it got out? Right. Now he's the scapegoat for your organization that's okay with that?
Right, because they have to bust that guy or else their whole organization goes down the tubes.
And they say, we nipped it in the bud. That guy probably, he's no longer in his position, but he probably still works for the company. Right, he's not in his position because he's not, he holds their morals and values the way they want them. Right. So, yeah, I'm like, look at me. I'm like, if my mom was pressured, she could have went to Planned Parenthood because it's been around since then. Oh, yeah. You know? That I would not be here. Mm-hmm.
Neither would your kids.
Neither my kids. Right. Nothing. Right. The life I'm having, I would have been married to my wife. Right. Yeah, it would be totally different. Mm-hmm. Who knows what my life would be like? Right. And I'm really happy. My parents, at such a young age, had the maturity to like raise me. Mm-hmm. And I have good memory. I remember stuff when I was 2 years old. Right. 3 years old. I remember them arguing here and there, off and on. Right. Sure. But they protected me very well. And you know what? I'm like, why would you want to destroy that or stop that? Right. And I just think it's one of the worst things. And now with the new laws coming in, you know, with heartbeat bills and the minute the heartbeat's detected, that's life. Right. You know, and that's so bad. Or what the greatest, I think, in our generation just about is with the Supreme Court where they ruled, said, hey, this is not federally protected. Mm-hmm. It's not like universal. We leave it up to states. And that's the way it's supposed to be in the Constitution. States are supposed to lead themselves. 12 colonies, 13 colonies, to the states and whatnot. And they're, you can't do that. Because they knew that was a loophole. Right. It should have never been that way. Supreme Court failed so many years ago in 1970. Was it 74?
I think so, yeah.
And with that bill. And even Roe, the lady Roe, before she died, she did an interview a couple years before. She said that it was propaganda. Mm-hmm. They paid me to lie. Yep. They put me up there. She talked about all her regrets she had. They don't talk about that. Right. But it's out there. That interview is out there. I've seen it. Oh, yeah. I read it. And you just think about it. There's just so much smoke and mirrors. Yeah. And with nowadays, you know, during the Obama administration, they passed an HR bill that nobody talks about. Mm-hmm. About it's legal for the government to use propaganda. Look it up. It's there. Nice. You can go to the White House website right now and find it. Right.
I was going to say, too, that whole idea of it now becoming, I agree with you that it should be up to the states. I totally in agreement there. But that's going to lend more to what I was just talking about the division, right? Because now what's going to end up happening is those people that want abortions are going to move to states that are allowing it, California, New York, you know, some of these more liberal states. And the people that are more anti are going to be moving out. This has been happening for a few years now. I mean, ever since a lot of stuff Gavin Newsom's been doing in California. I mean, we have lots of friends that have gotten out of here and moved to Tennessee, people, Idaho, you know, more conservative states. We were going to move to Tennessee. We were all slated and, you know, different things happened. That's a long story. But, you know, we feel like the Lord was closing that door for now, not forever, but for now. But yeah, it's just, they're just, because when laws are that drastic and policies are that drastic, people from both sides are going to want to be in a place where their side is being represented, whether you're pro-choice. People that are pro-choice feel very, 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 very passionately, strongly about pro-choice, and people that are pro-life feel very, very passionately, strongly about pro-life. Yeah, it's not like a simple little thing. The example I always use is like pizza. Oh, it's mushrooms on pizza. I like them. You don't. Who cares, right? That's a little blip in the screen. But something like abortion is not a small deal from either side. It's very passionate. So I mean, they're going to be like, okay, as a pro-choice person, I'm going to move to California. Let's say if I'm living in Tennessee, I'm going to move to California, and vice versa. If I'm pro-choice or pro-life, I'm going to move from California to Tennessee. I want to be under government that's going to be more respective of my personal morality, right?
Yeah, and you want to protect your kids too.
And that too, exactly.
And nowadays with government or whoever influencer out there, they're really strategically trying to. It's like psychological warfare, right now, spiritual warfare in a lot of ways. But they're trying to separate your kids by influencing them to not hold your views the way you've raised them.
And that's what I wrote that down. I was going to ask you that. How is that with you and your kids? How is that going for you? Like, as being a conservative. Believer in God, I'm assuming believer in God. We haven't got there yet, but you sound like you are. Are you able to, do you see, like, now that your kids are older in their teens, are you seeing that the influence of you and your wife in that realm is stronger, or are you seeing that the influence of the world and the influence of the state they're living in and the schools and all that is having an impact on them?
You know what? I would have discussions like with my daughter. My son doesn't say too much. He's like, he don't get into it. He's starting to ask questions now, and I have the opportunities to talk to him about it and help him understand. But yeah, I think I find like snippets of where my daughter would say like, well, this and that, and almost making compromising statements to ethics that we hold near and dear to us that help shape our lives and shape our decisions we do for them and for ourselves, and just being a good example to the community out there. And I'll stop her sometimes. Yeah, you know what? And I'm like, I just realized how misinformed or uninformed our kids are, because they live in a different generation where they're not encouraged to question things, test things out, listen to opposing viewpoints,
right,
and then make an informed decision. They don't. I think it just comes with just being young and immature.
Right.
But they might say certain things like, "Well, this and that," and I go, "No." I'll correct them because I don't want them to stray. And sometimes it leads to like an argument or debate or whatever it is, and you should get upset at me. Oh, Dad, you got all mad. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's not right, about this and that, but they're starting to like pick up more, like my daughter's starting to change more, like where she's realizing what's right and wrong more. She's understanding certain things.
And she's the older of the two.
She's the older, and she's the kind of person that kind of figures things out for herself. She's very independent, and so she doesn't really ask me for any kind of advice on things. My son will more ask me.
Does your daughter go to your wife for advice?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they have more of the girl talk kind of thing.
Okay.
And we're like, oh, don't come in, we're talking.
Yeah. Talking feminine stuff in here.
Yeah. And me, I'm more of the guy. She wants more of the more of my wife's point of view on certain things, because obviously they're women, so they are more sensitive to each other. And me, I'm more like more blunt and just more guy about it, so more masculine about it. So she needs that woman's touch on certain things. So that's what she'll talk about certain things, but she knows where I stand, and she knows where I stand on things. My wife and me, we agree with a lot of things, pretty much everything when it comes to these kind of issues. She doesn't like to she's not, she wouldn't be talking to you on a podcast about these things.
Right.
Now, if it was about her profession and things she's really more passionate about, oh yeah, no problem.
Right.
But at the same time, she's pretty more like, you know what? I don't feel the inclination or the need or the passion to basically go out there and tell the world where I stand on things.
Right. She's not an evangelist. She just keeps it to herself.
And for me, I'm more the opposite, just because I'm more passionate about it. It's something that her dad was really big on U.S. history, politics at a young age. She wasn't into that kind of thing.
Right.
She had other interests. So doesn't jive her too much to express it. But for me, I do, just because I feel like, well, you know what, she'll be told like, well, so you're not gonna how you can make a difference unless you run for public office.
Right. Sure, man.
Maybe I will.
I vote for you.
Thank you. I just think we're all messengers. We all gotta bring a message out. If we can reach my son, start my kids, so that they can preserve life the way it should be around here. Right. Not just in, beliefs about abortion, just anything. Right. About how our country, I'm saying we all have a responsibility as a people, no matter what walk of life we're from, what color skin we are, no matter what. Yep. To live in harmony with each other, to understand each other's differences, to love on one another, and the same time encourage one another and motivate one another to stand up for what's right, speak up. Because, like I said, in this day and age, when it comes to government and leadership and world views or world leadership around the world, when all these countries come together and they go to G summits and they basically talk about how they're going to change their nations, but with one thought process in mind that they all share, which I think is the threat. Right. Where it comes to World Economic Forum, or it comes to what they do in Davos, or wherever they do, they talk where nobody else can talk, and you can't be there. Only them can be there, right? Right. So I just want to be able to share people. Hey, we all have the ability to share the message with people, whatever that is, to safeguard what's most sacred, our beliefs, our ethics, regardless if you're Hindu, whatever, Christian, Catholic, atheist, Satanist, I don't care. Right. We can all love each other. Yeah. And we may not be going to church with them or going to their meetings, whatever you want to call it, but we can still say, hey, you can have someone that worships Satan, someone that worships, I don't know, cows or worships whatever they worships God, whatever their God is. We can still say, you know what, we're going to put our country first. Right. We all have the same ideals. We want this country to preserve. We want to preserve life. We want to preserve our Constitution. That's why we came here. That's why we immigrated here. Yeah. Because we came here because we know it's better here. Right. Because our country was oppressing us. Whether it's Mexico, China, Russia, whatever the country is oppressing us. Everywhere else. They're coming here. Right. But then with the problem they're having, they're coming here with hopes of assimilating to this way of life, but then they forget they bring their old stuff in. Right. And then they want to change it to what was there. Right. I'm like, you're hearing about like China bringing the United States possibly allowing China to have its Chinese police be here on our country to police Chinese immigrants or Chinese people from like somehow like watch them. People that are American citizens but are of Chinese descent, right? Yes. And that's crazy. And that's crazy. I go, they're our biggest threat. They've been stealing from us for years. Right. I'm like, you ever heard of the 100 Talents program? It's a recruiting program that's been around for years. And if you go on the White House website, 100 Talents. I think 100 Talents program or 1,000 Talents program. What it is that if you have a Chinese American, either born here, immigrated here, United States citizen, they obviously have family that lives back in the homeland, right? It's typical, you know. I have Mexicans. I have family in Mexico too, as well. So, what they're doing, the Chinese government's saying, "Hey, you go to Yale University, you're a chemistry student, and you're like well advanced in things. We're going to pay you $10,000 a month to steal intellectual property of whatever the Harvard Department of Chemistry is working with, because remember, the government gives them money all the time to fund research, to have the best and brightest minds at all time working throughout the university system to help develop science, whatever it is, secrets to make us ahead of the game. 10,000 a month, huh? Dang. Yeah, or it could be more. Or they'll have, our immigration laws have been so lax, so like people are coming in from China saying, I'm a Chinese student. And remember, right now, the majority of foreign students that come to America are Chinese. Right. And so they're coming in and they're stealing stuff. And then they're reporting back what they're getting. And if you look in the White House, actual whitehouse.gov website, it's there. People just don't know, are just too ignorant or lazy, or just don't want to know. They're just scared. They want to go along drinking their cappuccinos and having dinner parties and not thinking about this stuff.
Right.
And they're catching these people. Like they caught some people with what they call biological material. Mm-hmm. Trying to get back into China from the United States. They stopped them because they said they went to the X-ray machine. There's someone that had like a dozen vials of some biological material. They wouldn't say what it was. Oh, wow. But this is during the beginning of COVID.
Oh wow, wow.
and they were a Chinese student, but then they found out it was a woman that was a lieutenant in the Chinese army. Mm. She was an operative.
She was pretending to be a student.
She was 20-something years old, young, typical, right? Young student coming over at the right age, just trying to learn.
Right.
And they were actually going back and forth, and it's called the Towns Point. It's actually on the White House website. I looked up online to try to test this stuff, see if it was a conspiracy theory. No, it's there. It talks about this person was detained, this person detained. There was a professor, I think, the head of the whole chemistry department. I think it was for Harvard, and he was arrested too for espionage under the Espionage Act. Because when you get money from the government to do a school gets it program, you're supposed to let the government know that if you're working with any other outside entities, right, especially if they're foreign. He didn't tell. When the FBI went to interview that person, they caught him lying because they found the evidence,
right,
and they found the students trying to get back over.
Well, why aren't they putting a stop to that then if they know it's happening?
Well, I know these people have been arrested. I think they're waiting trial. It's been going on. I think he's been locked up for a couple of years now. But I don't know what's going on with everything going on, with everything politics and the propaganda, everything coming over.
Right.
People they're not talking about it. I'm saying like on the media's mostly not. It's mostly one-sided.
Well, even if the media does talk about it, how do you know what's true and what's not? I mean, it's like how do you really decipher that these days? You know.
Well, yeah. Well, nowadays they're just like spitting stuff out, and they're like, you got to figure out if it actually happened now, or you got to figure out.
It's right.
You got to figure out if it's true. So you got to look around and you got to dig.
Right.
You got to go down what they call the rabbit hole.
Right.
To find things. You got to go back to history. You got to go back to there's all these little pieces of puzzle. You got to put them together because they're trying to scramble. It's like scramble everything around. Good luck. Throw this one behind the couch and throw this truth behind underneath under the carpet. Give one to the big one the dog's bowl, and you just can't find everything. And so you do the best you can, and you use your ethics, your morality to kind of. I mean, sometimes you call not discretion, but your discernment, like your wisdom,
right,
to realize, hey, something wrong here. Right. So, but like I said, it's just. Like you see all this stuff, you hear about all this stuff, and it's going on to this day, and sometimes the information is right under your nose, but you just don't know. You're not looking.
Right.
And some people it frightens them. Oh, I remember one time I was working at Vaughn's back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I was with my friend and we're talking, and as I was talking, I was passionate because when we went to church one day on a Wednesday, we had a special guest. He spoke the whole time. He I forgot his name. He introduced himself as he was an ex-operative of the CIA.
Oh wow!
Retired.
Nice.
Guy was probably like in his mid-50s or something like that. Late 50s, and he talked about the world's not what you seem, guys. You got to understand. He's thinking it from a more spiritual point of view. He would show us like pictures of things like that, like how certain buildings are constructed to and if you look at an aerial view, they're like. Actually, for instance, I'm just making this up, like a pentagram or just some type of way. Everything has an intent. Mm-hmm. And what happens in Brussels and all that other stuff. And he started talking about like the dollar and like how like it has that Latin. It means completely contradictory to our values are like a nation without God.
Right.
The new secular order, Novus Seclorum.
Yeah.
On the dollar bill.
It's like Illuminati stuff.
Yeah. The all-seeing eye. And he told us what everything means because he is, as a CIA thing, they have access to information. They have access to things. They have and they know where to look for things. They expose to things. They see things. They hear things.
Right.
They witness things in their careers that just shock the senses.
Right.
And he started sharing this with me. So one day I was a bag boy at Vaughn's. I was bagging groceries. I was talking to this girl. We were kind of downtown. This guy was sitting in its cashier was there. And I was just going on. I had to tell my friend, oh, the dollar bill. I see all this stuff and blah blah. And he was talking about all the stuff I had learned. And then when after they left, the cashier says, hey, you know what? You made that guy mad. Because what? He told me that for what you're saying, you could get yourself arrested.
Oh, wow.
So fast forward to nowadays, what gets you arrested nowadays and what gets you persecuted nowadays.
Right.
And think about, people don't want to know. And maybe not everything's 100% what I'm hearing or I'm reading. But when you start delving into things, you start seeing other examples decades before this supposedly came out, and you see the same pattern, and you start thinking, you know what? I'm just not going to take everything for what it is. It's more complicated than that. It's more it's more layered than that. Yeah. I'm saying darkness and people's reasons for doing things for dark reasons. I'm saying they're not. Before they were trying to hide. Now it's out in front of you.
Yes.
In music. And look at the albums nowadays, what they look like.
Yeah.
They look weird. Even, like I said, go back to music, Carlos Santana. I read the biography about him. He said that when he used to get into psychological drugs a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And they say, and like even Bob Marley, he was Rastafari, right? He was basically like a new religion they created, like, he was Christian, he believed in God, Zion, all that stuff like that. Yeah. But then he said that they believed, but through Rastafari, that through hallucinogenics and drugs, that it would open their minds, make them open vessels to get closer to something, but the higher understanding, illumination or enlightenment. And stuff like that. So when you hear about those things and you start seeing things, you start seeing, wow, that guy was, look at that album, that guy was really tripping during that time, right? And you see stuff. And you start seeing things. And you start realizing there's a lot of stuff out there. You start seeing, like, when they call it Pizzagate, they talk about, like, the whole, like, different symbols that the FBI acknowledged that are, like, symbols that represent pedophilia. The FBI says these are what they are. And then you start seeing them on products as the seal or the symbol of a company. Maybe in the same shape, but maybe a different color. Just kind of like, it's there now. You see things. When you start seeing cartoons, you start seeing the stuff they're saying now. And they're like worshiping Satan and a Disney cartoon. You start seeing, now it's like they're out there. They're trying to normalize it.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
You see it when they torture people. Like, and they want, again, what they do, they play music over and over again. They play sounds. They play things to break you psychologically so that they can get what they can get from you. They've been doing that for years. Hitler's been doing reprogramming of people for years. He was dealing with a lot of different techniques to get people to believe certain things. They say even there's interrogative techniques that certain interrogators can use to plant ideas in your head to get you to confess to certain things and make you believe. You said that there's that suggestion, the thing of suggestion, and there's all these different things nowadays, and that's what they do all the time. So you got to watch out.
Oh yeah,
you got to watch out. Like for me, I understand this now, so I can listen to anything, and I'm not going to be, oh my God, I'm going to go kill people, or I'm going to go do this. I get it. I listen to, I don't just listen to like the beat anymore. I listen to the words.
Well, because you've already educated yourself. You already have a strong stance on where you stand, to where a lot of people don't. And I think that's what it comes down to. You talk about people that are easily swayed. Well, it's because they haven't really picked a side yet anyway. They don't know where they're at.
They're confused.
Right, they're confused. They just go with whatever the flow is. Yeah, for sure.
And then you got certain entities like, let me help you understand.
Oh yeah.
Let me help you.
Right.
And entice you. And now they're saying like with industry now, everything's like with industry, music, movies, they're trying to keep you distracted so you stop asking questions.
Right.
And then now they're starting to put like certain suggestive material and like of what's going on nowadays.
Right.
In music, or like you said, if you don't go with the flow, you're out of Hollywood, kick out of Hollywood, right? And like Chris Pratt gets away with it really, really well.
Well, I don't know. He's still in there. But he's got a lot of haters.
He's getting a lot of haters.
Right.
When he accepted his award, I think Teen Choice Awards, and he talked about the Lord. Blah, blah,
oh yeah.
But he used it. But the thing is, even if he was willing to take a leap of faith and do it, whether it destroyed his career or not.
Yes.
Because he knows he just told that to millions and millions of people.
Yep.
And millions and millions of kids.
Right.
And people are so like threatened by that.
Right.
Why? It's so pure and so innocent.
Well, it shows you what he cares most about, right? He cares more about that than he does about his career. To where most people in Hollywood would say, no, I'm not going to voice my opinions about that stuff because I know I'll lose my career. You see what I'm saying? So that's a big deal too.
Yeah.
So yeah. So all right, we'll get into that next for sure. All right. Yeah. So I guess we'll springboard off Chris Pratt. I mean, so he obviously recently is open about his faith, and it's some people are cheering him on because of it, but others not so much. I don't know how much longer he'll be in Hollywood because of it, but and you had mentioned a few times throughout our conversation so far about going to church. So why don't you start by just telling me about your spiritual background?
Okay. Well, I was we've attended church, and I'd say practicing Christian since I was little.
Okay.
To the credit of my parents.
So your dad was a minister, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started about 7-8 years old, probably. About 40 years now. Mm-hmm. My dad was always involved in worship, so that was a big connection for me as well, mm-hmm. through the music. And they were always very involved, very loving, they're very compassionate people. No matter who was there, they always accepting to everybody. And I would see how they would raise us and how the morals they would instill in us. They kept it very simple. It was always about compassion, mm-hmm. love, understanding, patience, and forgiveness. Mm. Even when it's hard to do so. And I saw it through their own examples, so that helped. That they would get, sometimes when they were arguing, they would shield us from their arguments because they know it didn't have to do with us, and they want us to have psychological trauma. Right, exactly. So they would say something like, "Hey, me and your dad are gonna go for a ride because we're gonna go out for a drive." Oh, they're fighting. That's a fight.
So even though you knew what was happening, you didn't have to be subjected to it.
Yeah, I think one time I heard my mom twice say "shut up" to him twice. But they were never openly disrespectful to each other, mm-hmm. and that was wow. I go, where did they get that from? And so I learned at a young age to stuff like don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Right. Don't go to bed angry. Right. Because what if that's the last time you see that person, and the last time you talked to them was harsh, or you didn't forgive them in your heart? What kind of burden would that be on your heart, right? Yeah. So those are the core principles I live by, mm-hmm. even if I don't get them right. I make mistakes plenty of times. And with Christians, people get that misconception that Christians, they hold themselves to perfect, they think you're better than everybody. Right. Heck no, the difference between me and you, if you don't believe, is because I know I need a savior, and you don't know that yet. Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? And I always say, if you find a Christian who says that they don't need that, or they're perfect, or they're sinless or whatever, it's I don't know if I believe that person's actually, because mm-hmm. real Christians understand who their savior is. They understand why they need him. They understand that they're fallen, that they're still messing up all the time, mm-hmm. that on a daily basis we're constantly proving to ourselves that we're not sufficient. We're not, we can't measure up to God's standard. We need Christ for that, right? So would you? So you said Christian. Do you fall more? And is it more Protestant based, more Catholic based? Yeah. So I've heard of denominations of mm-hmm. stuff, but I really didn't get it. I just figured, what? I believe in understanding the Bible for it the way it's written. I like when you have a pastor talking, I read the Bible and I look, oh yeah, he's being on Scripture. Right. If anybody deviates and start making their own stuff, I'm out of that church. Good. I'm out of that church. So you hold Scripture in a very high regard. Yes. Okay. I know people will debate. Whoa, it's been regurgitated so many times, been re-edited so many times, different languages. It's probably lost its meaning. I've heard that plenty of times. Right. You know what? I'm I go. You look at it, and it was made by men. I go, well, who else is gonna give it to you? Mm-hmm. I'm saying, mm-hmm. I'm we're his creation, and he wants us to spread the message. So, right. So, like I said, it's just, I didn't realize there was any oh, you're Protestant like that, and you're Pentecostal or this. Mm-hmm. So like for instance, Calvary Chapel, they're huge, right? Right. And that's where we first started attending as kids, and through adulthood. Here in town? Yeah. Yeah, I started in Rio Grande where it first started regionally in this area. Okay. My dad, my uncles, they had it in Rio Grande first, but they want to start one here in Santa Maria because a lot of people are driving there. Yeah. So they got together with the pastor out of Redlands, California, that was mm-hmm. assistant pastor down there. Say, hey, we want to be able to start a church here because we have so many people that have to drive their AG or whatever it is. So they met each other at a men's camp, mm-hmm. retreat. Yeah. And And he ended up moving down here to Orchid area, and they planted a church out here, and we started with the YMCA.
Yeah, who was the pastor at that time?
His name was Pastor Larry Elizondo back then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so he was out of Redlands.
Mm-hmm.
And I still pass by when I drive. I still see the house he used to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started there, and then my dad was worship leader, and my uncle played the congas, and Larry, he played the sax. I think he played the saxophone, and he played the piano, and he could sing too. It was great, awesome, right?
Right.
So we started the YMCA. Then we moved over to another church building, and we finally ended up on McCoy by the old KCY thing.
Yeah.
There, and then finally to where it's at with the old Grossman's building, where it's at now.
And that's when Paul Berry took over.
Right. And he was from Corcoran. Out there, out the boonies out there. And so he came down from there, and then Pastor Lozano moved up north to Aptos. So he's been the pastor there for a lot of years. I don't know if he's retired yet. I think he's still teaching. So that's where it started. And then obviously, with Mankind and things like that happened, I started going into another Calvary chapel locally in Guadalupe for several years. And then what happened after, division that happens among men, Christians were not perfect.
Right.
We had multiple church splits.
Right.
To where I didn't have faith in the leadership anymore. So
and that was Reuben back. Was that Reuben?
After Reuben, it would end up being it was Roy
Para.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you know everybody.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So we started at when I didn't get saved till I was 24. I grew up hating Christians, hating the Bible, hating everything to do with it. But I got saved when I was 24, and we started at Calvary Chapel. So we went there for 5 years when Paul was the pastor, and then we left there and went to a church out in Sisquoc for 12, 13, 14 years, something like that. Then we left there, and then we went to the Harbor on Foster. We were out there for 3 or 4 years, and now we're back at Calvary. Like in the last couple months, we just went back to Calvary. Now Pastor Paul's son, Connor, is now the pastor.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny. The resemblance is so uncanny. And and I think their teaching and their voices they're different. But I appreciate it. And Paul's awesome. He always called me Junior. My dad was Tony, so I was Tony Junior. So they still they see me, they still call me Junior. It's pretty nice. It's pretty cool.
Were you guys going to Calvary Santa Maria?
Yeah, we did for a while. We went for a little bit when I went there from junior high, 12, 13 years old, up till I was like my 20s, early 20s. Okay. And then I got married. Me and my wife got married. Went to LA. We started going to Calvary Chapel, Alhambra, which is his pastor was Don Atello. Funny,
Don Atello?
Yes.
That's awesome.
And he's Mexican. An ex-Mexican vato.
Nice.
Cholo.
Nice.
He told me Reformed Cholo.
Right.
That from Montebello or something like that. Okay. And he's from the streets, and his name is Donatello.
Donatello, man, that's like mobster name right there,
straight
man.
Out. And
wow.
And so we went there for a while, and then we were working there and Pasadena, which is Xavier Reese, Raul Reese's brother.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we went there back and forth, and we just made sure we got to church and stayed plugged in. And then after that, moved back in 2004, and we started going to Guadalupe. We were going there for years until there's multiple church splits and things. And so we said, you know what, let's go check out Pacific Christian.
Oh, okay.
So, and then that's when I started hearing about, my dad started telling me, well, that's more like Pacific Christian, which is Assemblies of God Church, is more like, that's more Pentecostal.
Right.
And then
is that more your background or no?
I don't see much of that. I think it's because the way they express themselves, like maybe the music, more outreach, stuff like that. And then with Calvary Chapel, they say it's more Protestant. I go, I was shocked. I was hurt. I go, what? I'm a denomination. I'm not. I'm a denomination. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means that sometimes they focus more on. Sometimes they focus on more of they spend more time at worship, or they spend less time at worship, or they all teach the Bible word for word. It's just they just have a different way it's organized. Right. And then of course people say, well, it's organized religion, blah blah. What else you got, bro?
Right.
I'm like, you're supposed to be a community. Everyone wants to be in a community of people that share the same beliefs. Right. Out of support, love, and who's going to understand you better, right?
Right. Well, the way I view the denominations is that we all have the same Bible. But it's there's certain passages of scripture that are it says what it says. Like, you cannot make it say anything else. It's very
undeniable.
plain as day, right? Then there's other sections of scripture that it'll say something, but it won't totally explain what is meant by it. And you're kind of like, well, I don't know. So then you have one denomination will say, well, we take it to mean this. And the other denomination will say, well, we take it to mean this. And that's why they start denominations. It's not like they have like any, at least with the Protestant denominations, it's not like they have a lot of real core differences. They all believe Jesus is the only way of salvation. They believe in a lot of the things you just said, you know, love, hope, all that stuff is all in there. But there might be one small little thing where they're like, oh, we believe that baptism is immersion and we believe baptism is sprinkling. You know, so they'll start their own denomination saying, well, we don't do immersion here. And it's just like small things like that, you know, and it's like most of the time for me, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like, oh, those people are heretics, or, you know, those Presbyterians are heretics, and, you know, the Charismatics are the devil. And it's like, no, it's
I never
just,
thought about that
you know,
too. And so somebody
right.
tried pointing out to me, go, oh, that's kind of weird. I kind of felt bad. I thought we were just Christian, you know?
Right.
And, but yeah, I the proof is in the book itself, and then is the pastor actually teaching it based on how it's written, how it's been taught, and how it's been passed on. Right. And if I haven't met one that hasn't yet, I'm saying you hear all these different knowledge, like power churches where like Joel Osteen or something like that. He had interviews, and I think if I'm not mistaken, he said like, well, why do you only teach the good? You don't teach the others about accountability, revelation, because nobody wants to hear that. Right. So it basically means it doesn't get to 30. It doesn't get 60,000 butts in the seats. Right. It doesn't make you rich. Exactly. So you start driving on Lear jets. Because they also say you're supposed to be good stewards of your money, finances, you be responsible. You also have people that look up to you and see you as an example, as their pastors or as a spiritual leader to teach it. And then now you look like one of the Pharisees that basically adorn themselves, with the beautiful, nicest trinkets, nicest this. Now I understand that some people have different careers and they're blessed more than any other people financially. I'm not gonna knock anybody for that. But when you see someone that won't teach the whole Bible, just like the honey in your ear, and just like say that what you want to hear, so that you never feel bad, you never feel convicted, you never feel accountable. Name it and claim it, it's yours. Name it and claim it's yours. You'll have riches, everything. All he teaches prosperity and love. He doesn't teach the other part. And that's false doctrine. It is. You gotta teach everything, because what you're doing, and I think God holds us all accountable eventually for what did you do in my name? What did you do? And you don't have to be like a pastor. You don't have to be like this huge evangelist going all over the world. God's not gonna allow you to come to heaven with them, but I believe that you basically have to. God has you here for a reason. Yeah. Because He wants you to help save souls, that they can be with them and be with us. You know, because everything in this world is temporary. Just like a book fades away, or this your printer's gonna one day go kaput. Everything's temporary in this life. So we all do it. We all get distracted, and sometimes we get caught up in like things that are not permanent. And we lose sight. We see the sight from time to time, or on a daily basis, and we have to be reminded. But that's where the accountability comes into. That's where we learn, and that's why we learn the Bible and stuff like that. So it's just with denominations and stuff like that, I'm like, as long as they're teaching it word for word, whether he goes from Genesis to Revelation, all the way from left to right, or sometimes they go on like subjects and topical stuff like that. As long as we're for it, I'm saying we're eventually going to get through the Bible anyways. And you can always read it on your own if you'd like to too, as well, and test it for what it is. I remember Pastor Ruben told us, he goes, don't take my word for it. Read your Bible. He goes, look at it. Whatever I'm saying today, bring your Bible and have your Bible. But am I being not biblical? Let me know if I'm not. And I like that. Because he was not, he wasn't trying to be all holier than that.
See, that's a good pastor, is one who says, look, I'm just like you. I'm in this position. The Lord's placed me in this position to be the one up here sharing God's word with you. But if I'm wrong, or you see something that I'm saying that doesn't line up with Scripture, call me out on it. That's a good pastor to me, because there's a lot that would kind of puff their chest out and be like, well, who are you to tell me? I mean, I'm the one that's got the degree in theology, and I'm the one that's been pastoring for 30 years. Like, you're just some layman, you're just some nobody who, and that's not the way it should be. I don't think any of the apostles had that attitude. I know Jesus didn't have that. I mean, he he exercised his authority as the Son of God, of course, but I mean, it wasn't like he was trying to, try to say so in his case, it would be like him saying that he's better than God the Father, or trying to say like, oh no, just what I say,
Yeah, well, that's what the Pharisees did. I'm saying that these religious zealots, these religious people that knew the scriptures top to bottom, but then they also would say like where they would corrupt themselves, and the songs was higher than what they were. Instead of serving the people, they were serving themselves and say, look at me,
right?
Look, and I know everything. Or when they would say, all right, it's time to sacrifice a lamb, a spotless lamb, they would say, oh no, your lamb's not spotless, you got to buy one of ours.
Right. Right.
Ours is spotless because we say it's blessed and whatever it is.
Right.
It's anointed. I go, so yeah, keep your lamb, but you're going to buy ours.
Right.
And these people are poor and under Roman rule.
Right.
And
that's why you see that's one of the only sections in Scripture where you really see the anger of the Lord when he goes into there and he turns over the tables and he's whipping people out of there and the whole
judgment.
deal.
And some people wouldn't even call that anger; they would just call that God's judgment.
Right.
God, and Jesus was more than justified for that because.
Oh yeah.
But of course, they didn't see him as a son of. They didn't see him as God. They saw him as somebody that knew the Bible left and right, knew the scriptures. They saw him just as someone
Teacher,
that well beyond his years of wisdom. They didn't see him anything else. Some was a threat because he was like the mirror they had to look into every time they talked. And they realized that when they were going to stone Mary Magdalene or whatever it was for adultery, multiple adulteries,
right?
Because back then the law was just that was the punishment. They had the moral police back then, and so he said, well, whoever's free of sin, go ahead and cast the first stone. And nobody could do it. And then she looks around, women, where's your accusers? Where's your accusers? They're all gone. The Pharisees watch this. He goes, who's this guy that talks such wisdom?
Right.
And he wasn't popular, obviously. He went over, back then there were still nations, there's still tribes and different people. He went all over the land. I don't know how far he went, but he went very far.
Right. Where
there was different religions and different tribes that didn't believe in God.
Right.
Different kind of gods. And he preached to anybody that were willing to listen.
Right.
And that's what, and I believe that's why the Muslim faith, every faith out there that's been around for so many generations, thousands of years, believe in God. They talk about it.
Right.
They talk about God. About God. They talk about Jesus.
Right.
That's how far back he goes. That's how, because he spoke to everybody.
Right.
And I think that's why they knew it. Now they have their own take on their own interpretation of who he was to mankind.
Sure.
Prophet, holy man, shaman, whatever you want to call it. Not the son of God.
Right.
Muhammad's our God, or this person's our God.
But they at least believe Jesus existed.
They know. And I remember one time they took a poll years ago. I listened to the radio. They said that, I don't know what the poll is now. It's probably less, but 80% of society believes in a higher power. Whether you say you're this, whether you go to church, whether you're atheist, everybody believes something. And it's funny when you have people that don't believe in God and they get angry at you.
Yeah.
And they feel so threatened.
Right.
But then you use God as a real person and they think, well, God doesn't do anything for me. Oh, you just said he was God.
Right.
You just said it.
Well, and that's getting to the heart of it, right? And that's like, I think I mentioned this before in another conversation with somebody, but there's Christopher Hitchens. Do you know who Christopher Hitchens
I've heard
was?
of it.
So he's a well-known atheist, just like Richard Dawkins. Hitchens wrote the book God is Not Great, all about, and it's like these men that are atheists, yet they spend their entire lives hating this person that they don't believe in. Like this to them, this non-entity. I mean, that'd be like if you or I spend our entire lives hating leprechauns and writing books about how leprechauns don't exist and how all this kind of stuff. But there was a debate between, I think it was Frank Turek and it was Christopher Hitchens. And he said, he finally told him in the middle of the thing, he told Christopher Hitchens, he goes, Chris, this is what you believe. You believe there is no God and I hate him. Right? Like that's your philosophy in life. There is no God and I hate him.
Yes,
it's like, well, yeah.
You're making him a person.
How can you hate something that is non-existent, right? Like I don't hate things that don't exist. I hate things that are real, that are, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make any sense. But I think that just shows the heart. Like you talk about, like Romans 1 that talks about creation will speak, and everybody knows. There's another part of scripture that says everybody knows there's a God. whether they suppress it, whether they pretend like they don't, or maybe even to their own mind, they really believe in their mind there is no God, but their heart knows that there's a God. Mm-hmm. That's why they hate him so much, because he's going against what they want for their own life. I want this, I want to do this. And this mean God character who you Christians have created, he's telling me, no, you can't do those things. That's bad. That's evil. That's sin. And they're going, oh, hey, slow down. It's fascinating to me. And that was me too, back before not that I was ever an atheist, mm-hmm. but that's part of the reason why I hated Christianity, mm-hmm. because it claimed to be the only way. I hated that with a passion. I'm mm-hmm. like, I can get behind some of these other religions and say, yeah, we're one of many ways. Mm-hmm. This is just our thing. You have your thing, they have their thing, and we're all on the same path to heaven, and we're all enlightened and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's great. But this Jesus guy, man, the nerve of this Jesus guy to come in here and say that he's the only way of salvation. How narrow-minded do you have to be? That was my beef with Christianity and all of it. And your holy book's the only one that's true. And, you have all these other religions and I used to use the argument, say, well, what about some little kid who grows up in Iraq? And he grows up Muslim, and his parents teach him that Allah is true and all that. And he grows up the same way that a Christian grows up in America, and their parents teach them, like you growing up in the church. Your parents taught you from an early age, there is a God, Jesus is real, all this kind of stuff. So what's the difference? This is my argument as a non-believer. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing what you can look back on and realize the state of man's heart and how we know. I do.
Yeah, and I think people do know. That's why they struggle with it. They become mm-hmm. angry,
right,
or rejecting the word, or rejecting the truth, because it stirs them up. And it's not like there's nothing impure or evil about God in that way. Just because he preaches, like Jesus preached love. He preached the word to all nations. Everybody, and they say go out there and talk to all nations. Right. Anybody willing to listen to you? And then a lot of time they run out the door. The mob was trying to kill them.
Right.
For what? For preaching love, right? Compassion. There is accountability. There is judgment, and even in their own agnostic, atheist, and non-believing views, there's still government organization. There's still accountability. There's still all those things.
Right.
I go, what do you and I, or what do they have to lose in believing that? If I go and die and you think I'm died a fool mm-hmm. of believing this stuff, what did I have to lose?
Right.
Did it hurt me, mm-hmm. or did it bless my life? Did it add value? Did it add I'm saying, did I bless others? I'm saying,
right.
What's so wrong with I believe? Why are you so threatened by it?
Right.
I go, if you're so threatened by it, because it's tugging at your heartstrings. Mm-hmm. It's tugging at you.
Yes.
It's making you feel convicted. It's making you feel like, oh, and that's what God does. He mm-hmm. has a way of showing you your ugliness. And I go, and just so that we can be better people, so that we can love him, that we can understand we need him mm-hmm. to guide our steps. We can't do it all by ourselves. Whenever we do it by ourselves, we try to go on cruise control, we mess it up. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
When we don't take the advice of our wife and, oh my God, honey, you were right. or vice versa. Or the kids, you teach your kids, you realize you see the mistakes they made. Think of your kids. You're not saying you're God, but you're like saying, I learned, I understand, I have that wisdom.
You're more mature.
And you just learned the hard way what I already learned now. And God's trying to teach the same thing.
Right.
And that's the difference. We know we need a savior.
Right.
And we know we need him, and he wants us to need us, and he wants us to be there too. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want anybody to go to hell. He doesn't want anybody to go eternally damnation about that. And but people buy into it all the time, right. And now we have all this stuff out there, and so all these different distractions out there, whether it's through government, whether it's through this and this and that, and people lose their faith, whether in church, because they see a pastor go through something bad,
right?
Fall. Oh my gosh, I was a Christian until my pastor found my pastor cheating on his wife, or he's so mega rich, he's got $30 million, and I'm still struggling financially, but he wants my money,
right?
And I go, because people tend to put faith in themselves, or put faith in that person, mm-hmm. and that's not what it is. He's here to give you a message, she's here to give you a message, but you're just not you don't put all your full faith, you put all your belief and your spiritual welfare and your spiritual well-being over this one person. If they fall, they fall. But he fell. Right. She fell. See, they're human.
Right.
They're human, just like you fall.
Right.
You're a hypocrite by judging them or casting condemnation on that person when you made the same mistake yourself.
Yeah, they don't understand that actually solidifies the teaching of the Scripture. It doesn't discount it.
It doesn't.
Because the Scripture is a historical, a lot of it is a historical narrative of fallen men that are constantly and women that are constantly falling down and needing the Lord.
Yes.
So then we have this pastor who's ahead of us, let's say in the church, and then he falls down, and somebody says, "Oh, there you go. That's proof that the Scriptures are wrong. That's proof that the Bible's wrong.
Yeah, people want
Christianity's wrong."
Want people to say that all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And it's crazy. I'm saying, and I had people I care near and dearly to that say the same thing. Well, it's organized religion, blah blah blah, and this and that. Yeah. But I'm like, you know what? It even says, "Do not lean on your own understanding."
Yeah. Right.
Don't lean on your understanding. Every time we lean on our understanding on everything, we make mistakes. We get in trouble with our wives or our kids or whatever in life. Make mistakes, and it just brings us back front and center to what's most important. Hey, Lord, I need you, and not when I'm falling, but when things are good as well.
Right.
And
so I want to go back to early on. So since you grew up in the church, like probably from your earliest memory, your parents were Christians, your dad was a minister.
Yes.
Is there anywhere like if you were to try to pinpoint the moment that you personally received Christ, can you do that, or is it kind of blurred in just because like you've always been a Christian kind of thing?
No, not necessarily. I'm saying I always knew as a kid, when you're a little small child till even in your early teens, you don't totally understand the gravity of, or understand everything you're being taught. You hear all the history and the stories that people live through and things they experience and what Jesus went through and what God wants for us. But I really, you go through phases in your high school. You want to go with your friends, you want to party, you want to do this, you want to do that, and you kind of lose track. And you go to church because now that mom and dad's making you go to church.
Right.
Before you went willfully, then you don't want to go anymore. But then I think it was probably when I was probably the first time I was ever actually really baptized. And my dad always told me when you baptize, it's something you willfully do, not something we make you do.
Exactly.
Because when I was first born, obviously when I was a baby, I was baptized in the Catholic Church. They have a picture of me
Oh, you were? Mm-hmm. Well, how? Tell me how that played out. If your parents
it was just a thing. I think it was just a thing to do. I'm saying
just a cultural thing.
The cultural thing because my grandmother was Catholic at the time. They're raised Catholic.
Even though your parents weren't Catholic.
It's the culture, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think we went into church really too much, but that was the thing. You get baptized in the Catholic Church.
Kind of appease the grandparents.
Yeah. And you're doing the right thing, and you want the blessings of God, and
right.
And there's a spiritual decision, just spiritual reasoning behind it, but and so that was what that was. I remember when we used to go with my grandmother. Sometimes my grandmother would watch us. And then she goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go pray." She would go to confession. She would go to the local St. Joseph's Church in I think it was St. Joseph's in Nipomo. And we would go there, and it's funny, but we didn't understand. We were little, and she'd take like 5 or 6 of us there and go, "Shh, be quiet." She goes, "Cabrones." Like my grandma cussed. My grandma loved Jesus, but she cussed a lot.
Right.
And she be "Be quiet. We're going here, and I'm gonna pray." And she I saw like what's the holy water. I started with my hands in there.
Oh no! Yeah.
Hey, cabron, no, touch that. Don't touch the holy. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Just touching holy water.
Yeah, you heard it was holy water. You thought maybe it'd give you special powers or something.
I had no idea what that was. I thought it was just a bowl. I just want to touch everything. And so she sat there and she'd sit in the pew like ahead of us, I think it was, and we'd sit behind her and be like, shh, kind of quiet. And we'd sit there for like a good half hour or so, and then we'd go back home, and I didn't understand it. When I got older, when I was dating, my wife and we were dating, and then...
was she a believer when you met her? Okay.
Yeah, she became, I think, even more, because her dad church wasn't his thing, that's what his dad called it, and obviously he's definitely a believer, like really strong in his beliefs now, but his wife, my mother-in-law, would go to church and take the kids, and I think it was called, you call it it was a Pentecostal church, Spanish style church, but that's where they did worship like an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
And you're there for like 3 hours.
Yeah,
God, I have to go with a chiropractor now or something. You know, I went to a church service one time. Ooh, the great people. My gosh, it took for. I go, man, so long because the Calvary Chapel was like, you know,
4 songs, sermon,
it was
you're out of there.
30 minutes worship,
Yeah.
an hour,
Yeah.
you know, an hour good solid, you know, message. And so it was different. But when we were engaged to be married, this is back in '99 or so. We finally said, you know what, we knew in our hearts we wanted to dedicate our lives to the Lord and have a relationship that was under the cover and protection and the direction of God.
Right.
So we got both baptized at Lopez Lake. Pastor Ruben.
Oh, cool.
He baptized us both. I have a picture of it, and I was like 23 or something like that. 22, 23, and so that's when I really at that time, after going through all that as a kid and not trying to figure out what it meant and taking the Lord seriously and what he want and that, you know, that I wanted to have a relationship with him, not just a religion with him.
Right.
And I finally.
So it wasn't until you got married that you kind of came to that conclusion.
I really came even stronger into my thing. When I was a kid, obviously I was all about it when I was little. But when I get into teenage years, you kind of got like you're like, you know, with kids that don't believe or don't practice their faith and so you just kind of gonna be cool. You want to hang out with your friends and you kind of compromise
right,
so you can fit in.
Right.
And I think we all struggle with that, even our age now. We got to.
Oh, of course.
Careful,
of course.
But yeah, as a guy, we started doing that, and then we were just going to church. You know, in Alhambra, Pasadena. We lived in LA for a while, and we came back. You know, we came here, and then with when I was in Guadalupe Calvary Chapel, I was a deacon. You know, I helped out, and we needed help in a small church. We didn't have a lot of people that could help and are willing to. So we do all that kind of thing, and then there's sometimes where you even had the opportunity, like, so you know what, our pastor worked a full-time job, and it was really hard for him. He worked in Goleta.
Oh, dang.
So he would get back late, and sometimes so we'd fill in for him. Like some of the elders would give the message, or there's a few times I would go out there and give the message.
Oh, really?
On a Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
And so I had the opportunity to share what the word was, what God's word was saying to everybody, and so that was a really great way God used me to be more firm in my faith, to understand,
right,
to read and to study His Word, and to have a greater understanding relationship with the Lord, and to be able to share that message with other people, to hopefully that His Word would inspire others to stay with it, to stay with Him, stay plugged in. I like to call plugged in,
right,
and then going forward now, it's like I just really try to instill that to my kids, and we pray a lot. We're a praying family, and we pray for everything, good and bad, and I pray daily.
Yeah,
I pray for my coworkers, you know, and the kind of work I do, to be not only be firm but fair, compassionate, and at the same time just.
Nice.
And those are the kind of things that God asks. God is all those things.
Right.
You know, He's accountability. He's just.
Right.
He's loving at the same time. Yeah. And that's what Jesus was too. He wasn't popular.
Right. Well, that's probably why he wasn't popular.
He was just. He exposed people's sins.
Right.
And sometimes you can live your life not even trying to. You're not like, oh, look at you, not doing that kind of thing, right? Not holy roly or self righteous.
Right.
But people kind of see how you conduct yourself. They see it. Man, I've had people come in. Are you a Christian?
Yeah.
Because you act like one.
Right. Right.
Or this and this and that, and people kind of like see it. It's not you're trying to show it. You're just doing it naturally.
Well, it's that verse. It says, "City on a hill cannot be hidden." Right? And don't put your light under a bushel basket or whatever. It's like if you have the light of Christ,
let it shine.
It's going to shine, right? Like you can't put a basket over it. You can't hide. You can just go into your daily life and live your life. You go to work. You're working. People are going to notice something. They're going to be like, "What's up with that guy?" There's something different about
it.
Yeah,
if you're allowing the Lord or God spiritually guide you, people see it.
Right.
They see it, and you can't hide it. Even when no one's looking, you're the same way.
Right.
And you may make mistakes. You may say the wrong things.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, see, that's why I don't like believe in God or Christian, because you guys are."
Right.
I go, "We expect perfect. You got to believe in Him.
Yeah.
He's perfect.
Yeah.
You know, me, I'm not perfect. Like I said, the difference between me, I know what I need.
Right.
I know I need Him.
Right.
And you need Him too. I go,
yeah.
Because I'm like. Without him, like, we're gonna be lost.
Right.
I've done it plenty of times my own way, myself, and it gets messy.
Oh yeah.
it gets messy.
I had it one time where I mentioned to you already that I struggle with anxiety, depression. A couple of years ago, I was in one of the worst places I've ever been. Like I spent the whole morning just crying, depressed, just down, right? Just bad. Almost didn't go to work. Got up, somehow got myself to work. I got upstairs into the office, opened the door. This is back when we were allowed to keep the door closed. That they changed that policy later. And there was, for whatever reason that morning, no one else was there. It was just me. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. Right. Because I know I'm emotional. I know
This is at work?
This is at work.
Yeah.
And I'm there, but I'm glad that I can close the door and be by myself because I know that I'm going to be messed up. I'm going to be depressed. I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be all these things. So I'm in this bad place. Right. And I hear this knock on the door. I go, what the heck? So I open the door, I kind of compose myself, I open the door, and it's this other coworker who I don't know very well. Mm-hmm. Talk to her occasionally here and back and whatever. She comes in there and she goes, this is what she says to me. And this is why it blows my mind. This is, of all days, this is what she says. I just want to know what your secret is. I said, what? What are you talking about? She goes, why are you always so joyous? Why are you always so looking at the good side of things? And she's describing this about me. And I'm thinking, of all days for you to come and say this to me, it's a day where I'm a mess. Yeah. I'm hating life. Mm-hmm. Joy? There's no joy. What are you talking about? I'm miserable today. But that taught me it doesn't, I can be miserable. The joy of the Lord is still there. I can't hide him, right? So I'm of all days. So that was an opportunity. So I was like, well, let me tell you. So I sat there and I talked to her about the Lord, and it's just me and her in the office, right? And it was and then she walks out and closes the door, and I'm going, I'm looking up, seriously, really, Lord, really?
And he took away all that through all that. He took away all you're going through and threw it out.
Yeah. And he showed me, look, this is what I'm doing with you right now. And
he brought you somebody that either struggles to believe.
Right.
I don't know if they're a believer or not.
No, they're not.
But they came in there, and God put the most... You didn't know anybody in the building at first. And you have this person that came in out of nowhere.
Right.
That's your darkest time to lift you up.
Right.
To encourage you.
Right. And you're like, dude... What?
That's how God works.
Yes.
God's used the most unsuspecting people. Mm-hmm. And people would say this, well, God, he used this rapist or this murderer. Mm-hmm. When he used, what was it that he was a general in the Roman army, Silas or whatever it was, and he made him blind, and now your name is going to be Paul.
Oh, yeah.
And because he was out there crucifying Christians.
Right. Yeah. Saul to Paul.
Yeah. And then he used him to bring people to Christ in a powerful way.
And to write most of the New Testament.
Yes. The guy that was totally evil and angry and hated Christians and was there to make sure that the soldiers carried out the rulers' things about crucifying these people and to make them for good. Right. And it's crazy. It's amazing how God used I'm saying you had Judas, you had Simon, Peter, you had Simon the loudmouth, you had the tax collector that everybody hated. Right. And I love that when God says, well, you give to what God is God and give what to Caesar is Caesar's.
Yes.
Hey, it's government. You got Romans 13. You submit to authorities. I understand it. Right. He doesn't mean fully submit your beliefs, but he says there are certain things in government or certain things with leaders. You got to respect them. Right. You got to pay a tax. What it is, you give to what you give to God. And you don't let nobody inhibit that, and you give to what they need to keep things going. Right. So I love that part, man. In your testimony right there, I call it testimony. Sure. And it happens. And what happens, we lose sight when we focus on that moment where we're at our worst, as that it never gets any better than that, and that's why some people become so depressed where they just feel there's no other way out. Right. But you realize if you can just go on for a little bit longer, God always gives you enough in the tank to go a little bit longer. Right. And so that when you get past it, you can look back and realize, my gosh, I needed that. She came at the right moment. Right. When I was just feeling the worst ever, having the worst day. Yeah. Or the worst time of my life. Yeah. It could have been going for months, years, whatever it is.
Right.
And it just took it all away.
Right.
And gave me the strength to move on and realize, wow, an unbeliever came that doesn't even believe what I believe in, but saw my light and said, hey,
right.
I see you and I appreciate you. And I just wanted to say that.
Right.
You know, it's amazing. That's how God used you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, He rescued you at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Person.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
Right.
You can't refute that.
No.
And the people try to refute like the Bible, the validity, blah, 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 the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
Dude, supposedly they carbon dated the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they get the age they are dates back to when the Bible was written.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
No.
And all these books.
Right.
I'm like, even carbon dating, even science proves it.
Right.
So
yeah, so let's end there then. I always like to ask whenever I haven't had that many Christians on this podcast, but when I do, I like to somewhat play devil's advocate a little bit and ask that question of, you know, if a non-believer comes up to you and they throw all those accusations at you and they say, how can you believe in tea time? How can you believe in Jesus? How can you believe the Bible's true? How can you believe this old book that was written thousands of years ago is still valid today, and not only valid but trustworthy, and that you can trust all of it? So like when you have a skeptic come to you and say, okay, Tony, I want you to convince me. I want you to convince me that Christianity is the only way. It's the only true way. Jesus is the only way, kind of thing. Like where do you go with that?
It's not something you hear every day. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had. I might have had somebody come to me. I did have a really good friend, dear friend of mine that don't know if he's a believer. We had that debate for hours, and he was really intrigued by it. He wasn't totally convinced, but it got him thinking and appreciating where I was coming from. Just like that friend that in the coworker, that unexpected coworker situation you had.
Yeah.
But I would just be telling someone, I'm like, I would just go back maybe give him a history lesson and say, hey, look, I go, how can we see how the birds and how nature and how we breathe the air. I go, how can that not coming from something greater than ourselves? I go, I don't believe that. How can we believe that there's a great explosion and life just came out? I'm like, I go, and what do I have to lose to believe in something? What do I have so much to gain in knowing that God, the supreme being of all, created me in His own image. At the same time, loves me for everything I have, just like you love your own children, whoever you're talking to.
Right.
Love your own children conditionally. Who does that?
Right.
I go. It's not something that I can do on my own. I would make examples in their own life and show them how they're blessed, and show them how their lives and put things in perspective, like, and how they would be able to associate and how to connect on what I'm trying to say. I would probably be citing examples, and it doesn't have to be. It could be scriptural. It doesn't have to be but it could be just examples of life and how they can apply it to now. You can't just expect somebody to you can't just throw them with everything you know at them
overkill
at one time, because they're not going to know how to take it in. And I think for somebody you kind of have to just more like something called plant the seed, where it's pretty much like you kind of help them break it down in an area very simple so they can understand.
But what if you present that and then they say, well, I have a Buddhist friend who also has those same similar blessings in their life, or I have a Hindu friend, or even within Christianity, I have a Mormon friend, I have a Jehovah's Witness friend. And they say, so if you're trying to tell me that those blessings in my life are evidence for Christianity, why is that also not evidence for Buddhism being true? Yeah.
I think for me, I tend to take position, or the way I speak to people or share with them is based on what I believe in a lot of ways. Going back to beginning of the Bible and how everything started. I would also, I guess I would try to make sense, and it'd probably be easier to say it just instead of on a podcast, but if I'm talking to that real person, I think it's easier because I can understand where they're coming from.
Right, you meet them on a personal level.
And you understand, so you'd have it. I think it'd be easier time to basically be able to speak to their heart. And but I think also too, I would just if someone was say, they worship 100 different gods, or 1,000 gods, or a totally different thing, or don't believe at all. I would tell. I can't remember the way I talked to my friend, and it really made sense back then. But I know I reached them in that way. But I would probably be like, just tell them, I'm like, you obviously believe in a God. Mm-hmm. This person obviously believes in what they believe in their God. They believe in God. Your Bible speaks of them, of Jesus or God. A lot of these Bibles too, like the Hindu religion is very old. Mm-hmm. The Muslim religion is very old, and you speak of it. For example, I would say, why would Muhammad speak of Jesus?
Right.
Like he was with them. Mm-hmm. If he wasn't something to be reckoned with, something powerful, something beautiful, something that we need to take guidance from. I say, why would he be there? Mm-hmm. I'm saying, also too, you could look at timelines too. Look at where, like for instance, Muhammad came from, or where certain people, when they developed their belief, when it became real. At what point in time it said that God existed, or Jesus existed, and the time when it happened. And at the same time, you can also tell them that, you know what, I think in a lot of ways it could be difficult to explain to somebody, and I think it'd sometimes be foolish to think you can convince them right on the spot.
Right.
I think you can't. I think it's more of like just planting the seed, mm-hmm. and sharing with them, and them seeing you and hearing the compassion, the concern, the way you speak to them, the way you address them, mm-hmm. that where they want to know more, where it makes them now feel curious, mm-hmm. to know more about what you believe, and what you believe is true, what you know is true, mm-hmm. and because there's so many, I wonder, there's so many people, I've heard testimonies of people like that were born in India or a different country and had a totally belief, but they came out and they know the Lord, and now they're Christians. I'm saying, how did they get there? Mm-hmm. When I would hear stories by people that had different beliefs, because there was always something missing. There was always a hole, mm-hmm. too many holes in what they're believing. They started questioning. Like my mother, she told me early on that one time, like a bishop or something, like some major bishop, I don't know where he's from, he came to the church in Pomo, and everybody lined up, was kissing his ring. Mm. And she was like 7, 8 years old. And when it came to her, she refused to kiss his hand.
Oh boy.
And then she said she got some looks, and I don't know what happened, but he kept moving on.
I like your mom, from what you described. I like her rebel spirit.
Yeah. Mom stood up. Yeah. And she didn't sit well with her.
Right.
But he's a man.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I kissing his ring? So one time she asked the priest, mm-hmm. or the padre there. She says, hey, you say God's everywhere, but why do I have to pray and to the saints and all these different people? You say God's everywhere. Why can't you just go directly to him? Why do I have to go directly to you?
Right.
To confess. Well, because, and they say like, you're, I don't know how he said it, but he said that's just, he basically explained to her how it is,
right.
with the church,
right,
and the organization.
This is Catholicism, right?
Yeah. And she's never dealt with her. She said this is why she's always destined to be a Christian. Mm-hmm. Also with Catholic, we say, Christianity is a huge broad term too, because when the Spanish came, they brought what you call Christianity. Right. They brought Christianity to the Hawaiian Islands. Right. And a lot of different places. And they spread the word, either by force or by whatever means, be compassion. And so we hear that broad term speak, but also too, nowadays I think we see, I understand they believe in God and what I mean mm-hmm. about it, but the way they teach in the way it's organized, where you have to go to this person, that person, I don't believe in that. My mom didn't believe in that, and that she said that's what inspired her to not follow the Catholic way. Right. Because she, from a very young age, she questioned it. She didn't feel right. It felt wrong, mm-hmm. and that shaped how she raised us, how my dad raised us, and just taught us. Not just raising that that's the way they taught us, but but I really feel everything I have. They taught us the truth.
Right.
And they didn't sugarcoat it, and they were very honest. And but they always said you always have a choice. You know, you have free will. You always have a choice. So like, if I'm talking to somebody and I'm not trying to convince somebody that I'm right and they're wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to share with somebody a truth, just like Jesus did.
Right.
A lot of people didn't accept him.
Right.
But he still went out there and he preached, and he still shared with people.
Right.
And he planted the seed, and people wanted to know more. And what happened? First, it was a small group of people, and that was bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And they say, "What's all the ruckus down there? He's there, the thousands of people here. He's feeding all these people."
Yeah.
And I think that's how it starts. It starts with a conversation. It doesn't have to start like a debate or you're angry at each other. Mm-hmm. My pastor Reagan told me one time. He told me like one day he was trying so hard to share with a non-believer at the body shop, because he worked on cars, and he was like, the guy kept going off, and they started having debate afterwards, and then finally Pastor Rubin said, I got so fed up. I go, well, then you can go ahead and go to hell then. and he told me this at a story of the thing, because he realized where his heart was wrong.
Right.
And that's not how to reach somebody. Right. Because then you can possibly turn someone away. Mm-hmm. Oh, look, I see you guys are so judgmental, or however you want to say it, however you took it. So I think it's about, when you talk to somebody that doesn't believe, I think it's more of like, you are going to share with your beliefs. There's your opportunity. They gave you an opportunity right there. They're saying, share with me what you understand and what you know and what you believe, and you share with that person, and your hope is that, and you pray for that person that, hey, I hope I open this person's eyes. I hope I fill the gap of whatever void they're feeling, because if they're asking you, it's because they want to know. Right.
See, that's the whole thing. What's that scripture? Be ready to give an answer to those that ask you.
They want to know.
Right.
Now, but also too, you always got to be humble when you share with somebody. You gotta, it's like, you can't treat them like you're way up here. You're gonna meet the stereotype of what a Christian is to them. Mm-hmm. And you gotta tell them, hey, look, I'm just as flawed as you are. We all make mistakes. We're gonna find out we have a lot in common.
Right.
But the difference between me and you, I know I need him.
Right.
I know I need him. I go, and I'll say, God's a jealous God. He doesn't want any other gods before him. Anything, he doesn't want you praising anything besides him, above or below.
Right.
Right. He says that. Right. And so I take that very serious. I take that literal sense, and obviously people had trouble with that in the early days, and so he sent Jesus down here in man form, because that's what man wanted, that's what man needed. Right. And God said plenty of things that people demanded, and it didn't work out so well for them. But he had to teach them something. Right. And so he brought Jesus down in the form in the womb, natural, supernatural, without anybody else's help. Right. And showed him, and then this man died for everybody. And I'll tell you one thing: I don't care who you are. Listen, they all know he got killed. Right. They all know he got crucified. They know he hung up on the cross. They all know that. Right. So how come they know all that, but they don't accept the other part? Right. It's maybe cultural, the times, just like Mormons. They John Smith, hundreds of years ago, or what? It wasn't even that long ago. It seems like in time that he had a vision of God. And the way I look at it, and I don't understand the Mormonism 100%. I really don't. Mm-hmm. But where a man decides that he's the vessel, it's saying, why can't he see himself as a messenger of God? But then he created a whole different belief system, right? To where these certain things are acceptable, certain things, and that
one is very obviously man-made to me, because if you look at Mormonism and you look at the end result, is that every man who dies as a Mormon gets his own planet that he rules, and then he has a bunch of wives. Yeah, and could there be a more man-made religion? Okay, guys, we want a religion. What should we do? How about we own our own planet? We're the only man on it. Yeah. And we got all these women that are just at our beck and call.
and you realize people live their lives like that nowadays, like fornicating or going out to their marriages, or just having all these little multiple relationships at the same time, and see how much it damages them in the end. Oh, totally. How damaging it is.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How can that be any good? Right. It sounds like very self-serving to me, and very, very selfish, and very contrary to what God. Mm-hmm. Everything, right? Right. I think everything comes from God, Like maybe, and I think man gets it skewed up. I'm saying that's why we have these different factions and religions, and it started with the right purpose, and then into some, like Muhammad or John Smith or whoever it is,
right,
decided to, hey, I'm going to interpret for what I am, for what I do it,
right,
because this is what I believe in, and they convince part of mankind that this is the way,
right, and that's what's dangerous, like you were saying. That's why we need to hold to Scripture first and foremost. Over any man, over any pastor, priest, doesn't matter who he is. And that's why we need to hold to that, because that's the one thing that I think we can trust wholly. But we can't always trust man. Man might take Scripture and misinterpret it. He might use it for his own personal gain. He might twist a Scripture to make you want to give him money so he can be rich, or whatever the case may be.
And we've seen that.
Right.
We've seen people fall.
Of course.
Jimmy Swaggart.
Right.
All these different people. Tammy Baker. And we've seen those people fall.
Right.
Now, the dangerous part when that happens is that people lose their faith, or they go on, they go from the church,
right? Because they trusted man as opposed to
go to a different church,
right?
Go to a different church. Go somewhere else.
But what does that tell you about their heart, though? It almost kind of tells you that maybe their heart wasn't in the right place to begin with.
It may not be, and they may have been new believers,
right?
Or struggling, and they lost their focus.
Right.
They put they put everything into that person, that church, the way it is, and that's where you can't do that. You can't do that because you forgot. You coming for a community, to be with a community of believers, community of Christians, community of people that I can't always say everyone wants the same thing, because everybody goes there. Like I said, we see those examples.
Sure.
But they just we got to be community leaders so we can be encouraged, so that we don't fall astray. We need people to pick us up and help us and hold each other accountable. It's community. That's in all communities.
Right.
Everything that's branched out from every religion, every faith, comes down to God. I'm saying it's the same thing. I'm saying there's all these reasons why, all these hints that whether you're Hindu, whatever religion, faith you are, whether you're atheist, all those morals come to God. God created you that way. He's hinting you. See the things you believe in. I believe there's people, like I've seen videos of where there's a bunch of Satanists out there. He's got the horn. He's all blacked out. He's like, he lays hands. And he tells this guy, I love you. This man off the street just, I love you.
Right.
When I know God loves you, can I pray with you? Yes. A Satanist.
Right.
And he's holding him. He's hugging him. He's holding him. This guy's breaking down. Just like that.
Right.
I'm like, how can something so powerful and so loving, compassionate be so wrong?
Right.
And be able to some mankind to put it in a box and say, yeah, we'll put that over here. That's for another day, or that's not for me. I'm like, how can something be like that so wrong?
Right.
I go, you can chastise me, you can criticize me, you can try to make me look discredit me, whatever you want to do, make me look bad, make me look like a freak, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Whatever. But at the end, I'm like, you can't question my why.
Right.
Why I am who I am, why I believe it, what's so wrong about it? Why are you so threatened by it?
Right.
Because it's so good.
Yeah.
Because it exposes our sin, exposes that how flawed we are, that we need to keep working.
Right.
To be better, to be based on what Jesus' example was, and what God's example of love, no matter what.
Right.
Whether you're gay, straight, whatever you people want to identify themselves with, whatever it is, it comes down to we're not here to condemn the world. We have the right to judge based on things. We have court systems. We have all the things that do those things to say what's right and wrong. But we don't have the ability to condemn people, because if we condemn people, then we build the opportunity to share with that person. To share with that person the faith and the word and the message, because we lose all credibility. We lose everything.
Right.
That's not for us to decide. That's for God to decide. Let God sort all that stuff out.
Right. Yeah. Awesome, man. Cool. We'll cut it there. That's cool. Thanks for sharing all that.
No, you're welcome.
It's very cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time coming.
Hey, it blew by quick.
Doesn't it? Yeah, that's what people always say. Like, it's 3 hours. I don't know if I have enough to say for 3 hours.
I know, I was thinking the same thing. Man,
I'm like,
3 hours?
you probably have enough to say for 24 hours.
An hour podcast, but 3 hours?
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in this week. Please spread the word about this podcast to those you know. Contact me at whycan'twetalabout@proton.me if you have any questions or comments.
If you'd like to join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group, just search for it and ask to join. Thanks. Here's a clip from next week.
Because I try to get my wife to play along. Sometimes
it doesn't work, does it?
Well, we always do this thing when we meet another interracial couple, and I'll start making comments about interracial couples. Like, I'm still not, there was a white and the husband was, I think he was Hispanic. I couldn't tell. And I was saying, I get very uncomfortable around interracial couples. So and I was talking to her. And he was like not even in the conversation yet, and and it's like it's really nice to see you two guys together, but I'm just letting you know up front it's really difficult. And she's looking at me like, you idiot, your wife is white,
right?
I go, I understand that, but I just am not used to it.